Alex, are you letting people in? Okay. What? All the important people are already on. No, it's, she's entertaining another dog at home. Okay. You guys ready?
Ready?
Ready? Okay, we're gonna call to order the Kensington Town Council meeting for April 10th. We have one of our council members, Ann Lichter, is online. So she's on the Zoom. She is on a working engagement in Chicago, so she's calling in. Ann, thank you for joining us tonight. All right. So we're going to get started. But before we do, Jarrett Solomon is coming this evening. He's going to come around 7:30, 7:45, 8 o'clock, somewhere in that time period, to discuss the item on our agenda number 4. So we may move things around when Jarrett gets here. Okay, all right. So let's get started for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I think that got dropped because of we don't do it on Zoom. Okay, now our next item up on the agenda is moment of silence. Is there anyone that people would like us to lift up? Okay, if not, if we can bow our heads for a moment. Okay, thank you very much. Excuse me. Next item on the agenda is the minutes. Council, everyone received the minutes. And I didn't see any edits online. I have one, but does anybody else?
No.
Okay, last item, right before we adjourned. Excuse me, we quickly spoke about just changing the council agreed to reschedule our budget forum from April 3rd to May 1st. And then we adjourn the meeting. So Susan, if you could just add that. Sorry. Okay. So we're gonna go down to we need a motion to approve the minutes.
I move that we accept the council meeting minutes, March 20th, 2024 as amended.
Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move down to the announcements. Matt, do you want to just go over that real quick?
Sure. The town election is scheduled for June 3rd, 2024, and certificate of nominations are due by 4 p.m. on Monday, May 13th. We had a preliminary candidate form, if necessary, scheduled for Monday, May 20th. However, we were advised that that date may not be appropriate. There's an event going on in the building, so the council, if necessary, should probably schedule another date for a forum, if necessary.
Yeah, 3 of us are participating in the event on the 20th, so.
You're up.
So it's really in just regards to Ann, Nate, and myself. Is the 21st, 22nd, or 23rd, does that work for your schedules?
Unfortunately, I'm going to be out of town for a conference the 21st and 22nd.
Okay, do you want to make it on the 23rd?
Let me check and see if I'm back by then. I think I am. Just a minute. Yeah, that should be fine in the evening.
Yes. Okay, we'll switch it to the 23rd. Also, I have little notes to myself all over the place here. Let me see. So, the May-June newsletter deadline, which is typically we'll run an article for each candidate. The deadline for the usual contributors will be May 10th, and the deadline for candidates will be May 15th. And even if it's if we don't have, it's uncontested, if you would like to provide something, an update about yourself in the journal, that would be good, would be nice. Okay, and let's see, because our town council meeting is the second Wednesday, that's the 8th. The last day to declare is the 13th, which is the second Monday. We will actually announce the candidates on our website. Since we will not be meeting, that's usually where we do it, is at the meeting, but we will be meeting the week before. So, okay. Any questions? Okay. All right, so let's move on to I'm sorry. Oh, yes, Joe. Yes, Joe. I'm gonna move on, Joe.
He may be trying to talk, but. Looks like he's unmuted. Come in later, maybe.
Yeah, we can, if you can fix your, we can come back later to you, Joe.
You could take this question. Yeah, he's having audio.
Audio issues, okay. Well, if the question is if anybody's declared, no, other than the three of us, no one else is declared. Okay. So let's move on down to number 2. The Antique Row and Explore Kensington marquee signs. Council, you received some suggested change in the Antique Row sign that sits at Connecticut and West Howard and Connecticut and East Howard. The sign is in disrepair and needs to be either removed and refurbished, or and I'm not sure, we haven't actually had what is it's not Shanahan, what is the
Shannonbaum, sorry.
Shannonbaum. Shannonbaum has not come down recently to inspect the sign. But they may not be able to refurbish it, they may have to replace it. So we're just working on any change in the language. We're not talking about design at the moment, it's just the language. So there's 3 options for the one at East Howard, and there's 1 option for West Howard. Currently the East Howard signs just says, it says Antique Row, and then underneath we've added I think unique shopping, dining, events and art, I think are what's currently. And the West Howard, basically it just directs you to West Howard. It doesn't give any specifics like what's being provided now. I know we've got people here. We've received at least 1 email. I think you all received that.
Are you on your-
Not on there.
on your-
Yeah.
I can forward it. Well, Margaret's here. She
Okay.
can go over what her letter
Thank
said.
you.
Yeah. So the council wants to hear from the people that are here and online first, and then we can discuss it.
Mhm.
Okay, so if you're here and want to go to the podium, just give your name and your street or your connection to the town. You can give testimony on your preferences and why, and let's just remember, it's not about design at the moment, it's only about the verbiage. Did you want to go?
I think it feels like I'm on.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Well, I do have people online, I think, that are going to speak to,
All
but
right,
they haven't
let
raised,
them go.
well, they haven't raised their hands. So,
Sec.
huh?
Give him a sec.
We can give them a sec. Okay, Jody, you can go first.
Oh, okay. You can hear me. I like the first one, Explore Kensington at Antique Row. I personally feel that we have a lot of stores on the road that are new stores that, we have a lot of boutique stores that are, more than antique stores. And I think we need to highlight those stores. And by talking about Explore Kensington, I think that does that. And I would like to see that. And so that's why I would like to see Explore Kensington as the top line on the sign.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else online? Okay. Not seeing anyone else's hand. Anyone in the audience would like to get up?
I would,
All right, you get
especially
it.
having learned that one of the council members hasn't seen my letter.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
going to avail myself of the opportunity. to read it for you.
Thank you.
Very
I
long.
did just read it though.
Oh, you do have, he has it. He's
Well,
got a
sorry.
copy.
But since there's an audience of people there and a few here, it's not long. It's
Okay.
just a little over a page. But let me introduce myself first. I know many people here, but my name's Margaret Goldsboro, and I'm the co-owner with my sister Susan Goldsboro Glynn of Goldsboro Glynn Classic Furnishings and Finds at the corner of Fawcett and Howard. Had that shop since 2008, but I've been on Kensington Antique Row since 2002, when I took space in the multi-dealer market. And we grew bigger and bigger space there. And in that early time, I took over a lot of volunteer activities on behalf of the group. There was already a group in place called the Old Town Kensington Merchants Association. And because I had a long career before antiques doing communications, I sort of fell into that job of helping with the promotion of Kensington Antique Row. So let me read you my letter, and then I'd like to make a few other points. It was addressed on Monday to the mayor and the town council. The Antique Row sign at Connecticut and Howard is a beautiful local landmark and works to draw people to the Howard Avenue commercial area. The sign certainly needs refreshing. We too notice the rust, but the strong message should not be changed. You have a very, very successful brand here. With just 10 characters, a clear message shown at high contrast and legible at a great distance, this is an excellent example of effective outdoor advertising. Kudos to the town leaders, merchants, and state officials who supported the establishment of Kensington Antique Row decades ago. When we ask new customers how they found us, many say, I saw the sign and my car just turned onto Howard Avenue. They are delighted to find 9 individual shops with different antique and vintage wares, 2 multi-dealer antiques malls, markets that represent 19 different small businesses, 3 bookstores, all of which offer used titles as well as new books. There are also now 3 restaurants and a bakery, which located on an Antique Row, knowing that the town residents would support them. And so would the antique shoppers who take their time, hours on Antique Row, and they need to find something to eat. Excluding the food venues, there are 9 storefront businesses on all of Antique Row. Howard, including Howard, Armory, and Fawcett, that don't carry antique or vintage wares, only 9 of all the many businesses. They include a nail salon, gas station, 2 art venues, 2 shops, a hair salon, and a music venue. But it is very interesting to note that more than half of them belong to our marketing association, which is dedicated to promoting Kensington Antique Row. They understand the value of a true destination with a memorable identity. Montgomery County also knows a good thing when they see it. Visit MoCo says, the West Howard Antiques District and Kensington Antique Row have gained a reputation for their antique and vintage items from all over the globe. The area is famous for showcasing unique, one-of-a-kind items in a retail setting, both charming and fun in an historic community. Google knows too. Just Google, what is Kensington known for? Google will reply, Kensington is known for some of its popular attractions. The Mormon Temple, Kensington Antique Row, and the Noyes Library for Young Children. Drivers entering the town of Kensington at every inroad are notified with the cheerful green and yellow signs that they have arrived. They know they are in Kensington. They are already exploring. What they may be looking for or surprised to find is the destination Antique Row. Sounds like fun. Let's check that out. Please keep the simple Antique Row message on this very effective sign, both to support the businesses that chose Kensington because of Antique Row, and to honor the visionary team that made it happen so many years ago. That was my letter. And what I didn't mention in there is that over the 20-odd years that I've been helping the group advertise, we've used that sign, the imagery of that sign, which is very photogenic, and it also can be converted into other art forms, as the centerpiece of the advertising. This includes print advertising on rack cards, which we've distributed regionally, on the Sunday Driver brochure, on Antique Week Guide publications, and on the websites of these various venues where we advertise. Furthermore, it's the iconic image on the top of our website, KensingtonAntiqueRow.com, which is very effective. The people that don't say they came because of the sign say, a lot of them, that they came because of KensingtonAntiqueRow.com, where our members support a website that includes lists of shops by name, lists of shops by type of merchandise, with links, with short descriptions of each of those on the website, but also links to their own websites. And let me mention again that there are quite a number of non-antiques related businesses that choose to participate in this and to recognize the value of Antique Row as the destination that brings business to them. If I can address Jody's comment of a moment ago, there are not that many boutiques on Antique Row, as she's suggesting. There are a few, and several of them belong or have belonged to our group, and the restaurants belong because they recognize that there's an overlap in audience. So if I can just make one more point, and that has to do with the length of the message. I know we're not talking design here, but a fundamental of outdoor advertising is brevity. Antique Row is 10 characters. And because it is just 10 characters, those characters are 2 feet tall, probably. Now, anything you do to put more text onto that space, 2 lines of text, you will diminish the impact of that message by more than 1/2, because the letters must be smaller, there must be space in between them, and then there's your other line of text. In my previous life as a communications person for organizations, I actually had occasion to design some billboards and learn the lessons that the people from the billboard companies taught me. And that has to do with the brevity of the message, the contrast. The greatest contrast you can have is yellow on black, but we do a great job with the yellow on green because it's a very dark, nice green. And size. This one is magnificent because you can read it from blocks away. You can sit at the red light at Knowles and on Connecticut at Knowles and in Knowles at Connecticut, and you can read that sign. You can't read any little ones under it. And if you did a 2-line message like that, you would not read any of them from these distances. And coming the other way, coming down University and coming down Connecticut, you don't stop necessarily, so you won't even have a chance to read it. So I'm hoping that you will honor your predecessors who came up with this brilliant idea, and all of those of us who have been working here and promoting Kensington Antique Row for decades. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Does anybody have any questions for Margaret while she's up at the podium? Yep.
I just have a question. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think that's really helpful. Until your last point, it wasn't clear that you were saying not to include Explore Kensington. I thought you were just saying this is.
Just saying, keep Antique Row as the principal message at the big size. When I talked to Tracy about this there's all kinds of discussion about perhaps altering the lower portion of the sign where there could be a whole line dedicated to explorekensington.com. Have to be at a smaller
Explore
size.
into the,
Yeah.
keep Explore, Antique Row at the top
Yeah.
by itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Explore, you would be open to having Explore
Of
Kensington.
course,
at the
I'm
bottom.
just very passionately in favor of
Yeah.
keeping the Antique Row message, the 10-character message at monster scale so that it is read.
Yeah, I guess my only other question is, and it may be hard for you to answer this, but you said that the other businesses that are non-antique businesses are part of the marketing group. that-
Old
Town Marketing
Yeah.
Merchants
Old Town
Association.
Kensington Merchants
Yeah.
Association.
Yeah, so, and they're supported, they love the sign. Do you know, though, if they're aware of the potential alternative to also have Explore Kensington and whether they would prefer that?
Well, I know there are certainly some differences of opinion, and that's why this memo comes from me and my sister,
Okay,
not from the whole group, but I have shared it with the whole group. And I've, in a covering memo to them, I've, made some of these statements I've made on the side here, that all our advertising for decades has been oriented around the sign and the name. I was hoping more of them would show up tonight to speak, but it could be that some others will speak or chime in, so.
thank you.
I think you'll find that most of the antiques and vintage businesses are gonna wanna see the sign restored and this time maintained and continue on because it's a very successful brand that you've got.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Matt, the proposed work is just to refurbish the current sign.
So the intent tonight is to just kind of get a better idea of what language we would move forward with.
But are we replacing the sign or just refurbishing?
So we don't know yet. Our sign contractor Shannon Baum has evaluated the sign a number of years ago. We were looking at just kind of recreating what was there at that point in time. But then there's been, an opportunity here that we could add Explore Kensington, which is our brand in marketing for over 15 years now, for the entire town. So this is an opportunity for the public and the council to kind of discuss how to move forward on the sign.
And I think part of it too is over time, as businesses that are not antique related have always felt that they weren't included in this. I know Margaret has very strong opinions, but that is why we added the hanging little dropping of, shops, art, events.
Yeah.
And things like that to try to, because we weren't in a place where we were going to be replacing the sign. So now that the sign needs either refurbishment or replacement, it's been up over 20 years.
Yeah, went in with the streetscape in 2001. And as the council's aware, the business district is farther than Howard Ave. I mean, it basically goes to Baby Cat at this point. We've seen a lot of changes in that area. We have some services down there. We've had requests from multiple businesses to add specific taglines. We've always been kind of,
Generalist.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this is just an opportunity to get some feedback and figure out how we'll proceed.
So I asked, just to get more background, obviously if there were more space, I will say this, Mark, you make very compelling points about the size and the breadth. And this is not a gotcha, but I did notice 9 times you call it Kensington Antique Row. Now leaving Explore out, this is, to me, is a marquee that is also for placemaking the town.
But they already know they're in the town. They've been told at every portal.
You need to go to, sorry.
So, I interrupt.
And while that may be, it's still an opportunity, as we are looking to replace it, to also decide whether what we did 20 years ago, which may have been great and served a purpose, can serve that purpose and other purposes at the same time. And as I look at it, I mean, space constraints, that's why I ask if we're just refurbishing or replacing, and there may be ways to get additional square footage. I mean, I looked, it's a beautiful website for Kensington Antique Row and Facebook page, and I noticed that it is not merely Antique Row, it is Kensington Antique Row, that it is as important to Antique Row that it is in Kensington, and that for the shops that are not antique, it could be an opportunity to open up the sign to being a placemaker for all of Kensington. These are, my feedback just looking at the different drawings and looking at the sign online. But part of it comes down to space. Were it to be the same,
I think it's
Dimensions?
going to be the same size.
Dimension.
I don't see the dimensions changing. You want the height for obvious reasons. You want to, we hang the banners there for the different events, so you want that same spacing and, so I don't think there was any thought of changing, the height, more of maybe, we have to talk to Shannon Baum about the scrolling. Can they repeat that and things like that?
Yeah.
So there's,
The structure.
yeah, but I don't think the size is actually going to change. I know might be a couple of other people that have some thoughts on the, so I want to give them an opportunity to. Gloria, you have to come to the. Just give your
Hi there.
address, name and address, or just
We're-
street, name and street.
Gloria Capron, Montgomery Avenue. Been here for many, many years. And I just think, I loved when the signage came in 20 years ago. It was great. Now we know where everything is for the most part. But I think if there is a refurbishing, and that needs to be done, maintenance has to happen. And perhaps we've had this evolution of diversity in businesses that's gone on down the street. I just think it's important to have the sign be a placemaker or a placeholder for our town. And I had even thought, and Margaret, I hadn't really reviewed this with you, but perhaps it's the row on East Howard. Something that is a little more open to all the other possibilities that are going on down Howard Avenue. And the other part of this is just doing a bit of an homage to the row, which is historic. And that block is pretty much half historic houses and half businesses. And I just think it would be nice to keep the row in the name if there is some change. I also think that explore is a verb. And the row, or the row on East Howard, is a place or a noun. And I think that most signage is the noun when it's speaking in terms of place. So I think it would be better to do it that way. And explore, I love the explore idea. I've always loved it all these 20 years. But I think it stays in the website, in the newsletter, in the Facebook. It can be used many other ways, but I think there are other towns that use explore too.
Pretty
actually.
popular.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
popular, but it is the verb. It's the invitation to do. And if we can have a placeholder for the place, I think it should be a noun.
Okay,
And that's
thank you. Tyler, I see you out there, not to put you on the spot, but would you be able just to address the West Howard, since you're on the West Howard? That one's not quite as emotional. Yeah, if you could come up and just give us your feedback on that one. Just give your name and the name of your business.
I'm Tyler Whitmore, co-owner of Tyler Whitmore Interiors on the west side of Howard Avenue. I'm also here as an observer for Kensington Can, as I'm the president of that organization. We had discussed this at one of our board meetings, and we liked the idea of Explore Kensington. I mean, basically this, we all really liked this because it addressed all of the different businesses that were down on West Howard.
Yeah, you have quite a few
Yeah.
different businesses. They're all over the map there.
Vintage art services and food, so that sort of covered it all. So
Okay.
we were very happy with this.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, that's great. No, I appreciate it. I think it'd just be nice to, you know, we are using the Explore Kensington on West Howard. We could always just say West Howard instead of, which I think is what it says
I think
now.
Explore Kensington is a
Okay.
great brand. And I say that there were probably 5 or 6 members of the board at that meeting, and we all came to this consensus.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can I clarify something
Oh.
with Taylor?
I'm sorry, who's that? Ann? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ann.
Sorry, I know it's hard. I'm remote today. When Tyler was talking about the discussion within the Kensington Can board meeting, was that for both signs that they were supportive of adding Explore Kensington? I know they definitely were for West Howard.
They definitely looked at both signs at the meeting because some of the members, of course, of Kensington Can are on West Howard. They did like that. I mean, I don't want to speak for them, but the consensus was that they liked the Explore Kensington, you know, being on both sides. It made sense.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jody.
Jody, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to say again that I think if it just says antique row, you're doing a disservice to any of the stores that aren't antique stores, and that anyone who is driving by and just sees antique row, they're not necessarily going to make that right turn onto Howard Avenue. They're not going to know that SW7 is there or Pink Dot and go into that store and know that they're going to get clothing or you know, or get those wonderful things that are in those stores, even if they're members of the antique group that you have, Margaret. So I think it's important to have that Explore Kensington there. And you still have that antique row on the sign, and I still think you have that name there. And so I don't think you want to give a disservice to those stores that are on Howard Avenue, those other stores that are there. I think we want to be more of a community to those stores. I just wanted to say that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to speak? No? We don't necessarily have to make a decision tonight, but I do want to get, you know, some consensus.
I'll go ahead and give my view. I like the simplicity of just antique row. I don't think we have to cover everything in one sign. You know, we are not known as an area for shopping. We're not known as an area for dining or arts. The one thing we have, I think, is the antique district. And so I like the idea of hitting people with that in big, bold letters. I don't know that it excludes the others, because we have a bunch of the Kensington Historic Business District Wayfinder signs as well, that point us to the parks and the shopping and the farmers market and restaurants. And we have those, in fact, one of them is right across the street from the sign that we're talking about. And so I just think that what is unique about Kensington and what is unique about that area is it's antique row. You know, 20 years from now, if you know, people aren't buying antiques and all those stores have transitioned, we might reconsider, but even that, I would still think that's the one thing that historically has stood out as a marketing plus for this town. So I think adding the additional words of explore Kensington and antique growth just clutters the sign and makes drivers who are hopefully only going 30 miles an hour, but often going faster.
25.
You can hope.
25. It gives them the one marketing thing that we have here. And so I would prefer to keep it simple, use the other signs. But I want to keep the one below it, hanging unique shopping or dining and art, but keep the Kensington Historic District signs as additional wayfinding, but not clutter the main sign.
Okay. So you're okay though with adding, so you're basically looking at number 3,
I like number 3.
number 3, okay. I think there was one comment regarding, is adding an S on arts, so it would imply more than one type of art. So that, yeah. Okay, Connor, any thoughts?
No, I mean, I say no. I keep going back to, I'm looking at the Google Maps street view, right? Just trying to get an idea of moving up and down Connecticut Avenue. And, you know, Margaret's point about it, maximizing the size of the letters does make a difference. If we put 2 rows of text, it will be almost unreadable. Certainly at speed. That's why the design, I mean, how much is the, what do you call these flourishes, these?
Oh, the scrolling.
Scrolling.
Is the scrolling underneath, while it adds a certain
Something.
style? It strikes me as antique row can still be large. There's room, if you remove the scrolling underneath, to put a secondary sign that is Explore Kensington, really that big brand, because there's the one hanging inside that is the website. But again, when you, at the size that it is, you don't.
Well, they're afterthoughts. I
Mhm.
mean, both of those signs are afterthoughts and they're came about because one,
came
as I
late.
said,
Yeah, they came
because,
late.
yeah.
Yep.
There were more stores that weren't antiques and then there were more, then we invested in making Explore Kensington our branding. That was our branding.
Mhm.
And we've put a lot of time and energy into Explore Kensington and, you know, I think we've reached a point where it is making a difference. People are.
And that's why I am interested in finding a way to include it more than it is now.
Mhm.
When I look at the mock-ups lend me to believe that there's a way to do a second level sign that is more than the hanging sign. And
Mhm.
maybe that means removing some of the scrolling flourishes. And we're on page 3, where it's antique row in large letters, and underneath it's unique shopping, dining and art, that could be Explore Kensington. And there's still then, you know, the hanging portion, whatever we need for keeping space for our banners and other things. But to have Antique Row as a destination along with Explore Kensington, which is part of the fully inclusive brand for the town. But that just comes down to design and space.
Mhm.
So, you know, when it comes to the vendor, you know, I realize these are like PowerPoint mock-ups. There are other mock-ups that it is that within the realm of possible.
So bringing, so you're looking at number 2 as more of an option or trying
It
to
would be the
somehow.
words of 2, but you know, keeping Antique Row, not diminishing the size of it, moving the Explore Kensington into this.
Into that second
that-
sign.
Yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
but I stress one second, Gloria. That somebody is going to send me an email about these flourishes or scrolls. I'm sorry, I'm not pro scroll flourishes if we can get the Explorer Kensington on the underside, with all the flourishes on top, all about the flourishes on top.
You can't really see as you're seeing that. You
Yeah.
can sort of see them, but not quite.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, Gloria, you have to go to the front. I know, it's okay.
We should have a. When this.
Oh, that sounds problematic.
Okay, I was just,
They're not
I know
on
we're
camera,
not
though.
talking about design.
Yes.
But we also have that Safeway sign and there's a competition design-wise between the Safeway sign and the ruffles and flourishes. I agree, there's too many flourishes for today's design billboard type signs. And there should probably be a whole unification of whatever is going on there. It's very cluttered looking. I think it'd be much more powerful if it was one sign that included Safeway in there as well, somehow. But I don't know that that might be a whole new design.
Well, I
You
don't
know.
think I want to pay for Safeway sign, but
Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
and then what about all the other businesses that don't have an individual store
yeah.
name?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. They seem far enough away. I'm looking at a picture of it now. It's not like
Just
it's
that
in front of it. It's kind of behind it, set back.
There are two
Um,
different kinds of.
Well, that
signs.
definitely
Because-
design wise.
Yeah, I'm just saying we should perhaps we could look at that
Okay.
as something. that
Well,
comes
I mean,
together. And I thought
Shannon
that was
Baum can certainly, the picture that Connor's got up right now where it's showing the different signs, can send that to them and they can see whether they could balance that off. But I do agree with Connor, the little flourishes
Down on-
under Antique Row could go
Absolutely.
easily.
No problem with that. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Nate, and then I'll go to Ann.
Sorry, Ann,
When you're out of town, you're always last, sorry.
I've been there. So I tend to agree with Connor. In all due respect there, and I think that yes, we're known for antiques. It's really important, puts us on the map, but things are changing. And I don't want to say that people don't know Kensington or aren't knowing Kensington. I think more consistently for food, for other types of shops, for
Entertainment.
entertainment. Because I think that we are being put on the map for that now, businesses that have come over the last few years. So I also like the harmony between the two signs,
Mhm.
West and Antique Row. So if there's a way to accommodate what Connor's saying, and I am the worst at design, but I was even thinking if there's a way to play with the colors too, maybe putting yellow for, maybe not, but
Well,
yellow.
Antique Row is in yellow. I don't know if you can see Connor's. This is just, again, this is
Yeah,
just a
yeah, so
mock-up, but it is
putting
in
one
yellow.
in yellow like it is now, and then the other in white, just to show some contrast. So your placemaking with the color, like West Howard
Mhm.
could be in yellow, or an Antique Row could be in yellow, and then the Explore Kensington could be in white. Just an idea for the designers as they
Mhm.
consider it, because I do think it's helpful to have that new branding, but also keeping the old one that has been successful to some extent, and the size of it, because I think that's really important.
Okay, good. Right, Anne?
Thank you. I also like having Explore Kensington incorporated into the Antique Row sign. I like the first option. I recognize that some of the spacing and design elements need to be modified for visibility and the other points that have been brought up. And I think it does a nice job of balancing the historic presence and significance of Antique Row, as Margaret points out, along with the diversity of the new stores that we have. And I also disagree with Darren in that I think we are known for art, even more so with Compass opening, our public art, as well as all of the artists that we have in studio space and in shops, and our unique shopping. So I like the new approach, and I think I have confidence that a design team can balance both the past with the present, and who we are as a community. So that's all for now.
Okay, so just for clarity, you said you prefer one, the Explore Kensington at Antique Row? Okay.
Yes.
And I guess for the record, I would too, because that one is at least as similar as possible to the one for West Howard. But either, I think.
But
again,
you'd be okay with
designers-
two as
yeah,
well,
the
but okay,
designers.
well, so what, sorry, Darren. So, I think what we'll do is, we'll send it up to Shannon Baum and have them do both types, one and two, and provide some designs that we can look at.
But just to try to figure out where the bulk of us are at. But I might be misinterpreting what I heard Connor say, but I think the size of the letter is important.
Mhm.
And so I wouldn't mind putting, as long as we keep the antique row letters as big as they are and at the top, I don't mind Explore Kensington as like a hanging sign with maybe a
Well,
separate one. for
instead
the-
of a hanging sign, it would actually be attached to the posts. So it doesn't look like an afterthought. It would be part of the sign.
And that might.
it's
that's fine.
just-
I really I don't want the antique row, at least not right now, to be lost in other words, because I think, the drivers are focused on a lot of other things. And I've said it already, but I think we do give a lot of other notice about the other businesses in other signs. I would just like this to be the big focus.
Okay,
And so I don't mind adding it. I mind adding it at the expense of the size of antique row.
okay. So you'd be okay with number 2, just moving Explore Kensington down into the the second sign that's underneath while keeping it, the antique row, the larger size.
Yes.
Is that what I'm understanding? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. All right,
Tyler, is that-
Tyler, go ahead. Yeah, please.
I said I wasn't really gonna cut in on this because I'm not on that
You're
side.
a business owner that I know marketing group, so yeah.
Well, as a graphic designer by trade, that's what I studied in school. I think, from a design perspective, the typography is a big component of this. I think if Antique Row was kept at the serif font, and then maybe Explore Kensington and Unique Shopping Dining Art, or maybe a sans serif font, so that there was some distinction. It's actually also easier to read a sans serif font. So that might be a consideration for your designers to look at.
Okay, that's fine. Do you know, did Shannon Baum design this sign? Do you remember?
It did not.
Okay.
It was put in during the streetscape.
Okay.
We might have a record of that. But
I had the
think-
picture.
I think what we'll do is maybe we'll work with Carrie Ann a little bit first, because Shenbaum, they have designers, but they're not quite.
I'm not
detailed.
sure this is for Carrie Ann.
Yeah, so.
I really don't.
I think we should maybe come up with a little clearer design before we send it over to Shenbaum to mock something up, because they're not gonna be able to maybe necessarily do what we think they can do.
Okay,
They're gonna build the sign, not necessarily design it.
okay, well, I
Um,
think maybe instead of putting Carrie Ann on it, we'll maybe find someone else that can do that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think we just need to clean this up a little bit for Shenbaum.
okay, that's fine.
There's.
Oh, Rita? Sorry,
Everybody see me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
and Carrie.
Hi. Well, I guess I should hear anyway. Is there any intention on adding lighting to the sign? I couldn't remember if there was lighting.
There
currently.
actually is lighting underneath. Right
Okay.
now, there's some bushes that really need to be trimmed back, and then the lighting needs to be looked at. But yeah, that would be part of the refurbishment.
Okay. Was just wondering because I know, everything kind of shuts down a little bit earlier, but then some of us might want to keep open a little bit later. And then so I think with a little bit more brightness to it and, illumination to the sign, it could also represent some of us being open a little bit later as well.
Right. No, I agree. Yeah, that's part of the refurbishment would be upgrading the lighting, because that lighting is also 20+ years old. And the bushes have definitely overgrown a little bit in that space. If we go
Rita,
up
while we
front,
have you, can I ask, since you're a non-antique business, I guess your music and,
they're vintage, I guess.
Vintage.
Which I guess we can fall in a few categories, I suppose.
how do you feel about adding the Explore Kensington?
I'm for it. I think it's definitely inclusive. We do kind of fall in that line of being, sellers of vintage items and, things like that. But, does it mean that they're antiques? No, not exactly. A lot of people that we have come and visit the store, they didn't know we're there, of course, because one, the sign doesn't say anything about music, arts can be, here and there. But also when you see antique really big, they know of the antique store. So they're just not aware. And so, whatever makes it a little bit more inclusive for some of us, we're for it.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Margaret?
I'd like to add to the horticultural point
Mhm.
that the evergreen bushes that are there at the bus stop, the bus shelter on Connecticut Avenue need the gas station.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking.
Evergreens, bus shelter.
Yeah,
They're way overgrown and they intrude into the Connecticut Avenue and they obstruct the view to a large degree, depending on where you're waiting in traffic.
yeah, we have taken a section of that out as far as we can, but it's in, not in our right of way. So we can't go in there and
We
trim it.
prevail upon the people who own
Well, if you want to talk to them. Good luck with Safeway and the Shell station.
To the question of lighting, is the idea to uplight it?
So it's up
Or
now.
backlight.
We replaced the lights last year with LED lights, but there's some obstruction from the vegetation. I just want to bring up one point. This sign violates our sign ordinance.
Violates our sign.
Quite-
Oh, great.
Now, I mean, it really does.
No.
And it's just a question I thought I'd bring up with the council. I mean, we can look at some other design options. I mean, I don't know if the council, and from the feedback we got tonight, I mean, do we want to stick with this or do we want to do something different?
Is it because it's too high?
It's way too high.
Hmm.
We would never permit this.
Right.
We are not advertising a specific business. Obviously, we can exempt ourselves, but this is not a sign that we would ever allow in the town. At this point. So, maybe we take this opportunity to step back and maybe find a better design option and then come back and figure out the language. Or we can just proceed with this existing sign and update the language. So.
Personally, I do not have a problem with having a bigger sign and one that is, strongly identifies with the Kensington brand. I would be willing to override our sign ordinance, as we have been doing, apparently.
You can get up there and talk. It's an open meeting, Tom.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tom Brault. I'm a business owner in Kensington. I strongly support a bigger sign for you all. And I support more than one. So I think in front of the Bakers Union, there ought to be a sign. We're willing to partner with you all and work when you come from Montgomery County at Summit and Knowles. Maybe we can work something out there. So more signage is great. I always, Matt, I don't understand the Burka sign on the other side of the street. It is so far out of the regulations that I've never really understood why. And I certainly welcome, if you're comparing signs, give forward your beautiful signs. And I don't mean to talk negatively about a wonderful business owner and a wonderful family. I'm just saying the ordinance, I'd rather see your beautiful sign bigger than, that white sign next to the gas station on the other side of the street. And I wish you all well with the decision. And it's lovely to see so many passionate people about Kensington.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, we have been on this topic for a while and we've got other things on the agenda. So it sounds like you guys are willing to stick with this type of sign just so we know how to move forward. Is that what I'm hearing from the council, or you want to?
Yeah, I'd be willing to.
Yeah, that's
exempt it.
fine.
To exempt it, okay.
Yeah.
So I think so I think that's cool. That's the great thing about being a government. You can exempt your own rules sometimes. if you need to. So, and then we will look for a designer and then we'll be back. So no decisions have been made today. We have good direction though. And we'll put it back on a future agenda. Okay, all right, thank you very much. Oh, Georgina, you're gonna have to go up there, sorry.
My name is Georgina Liu, and I lived in Kensington for over 45 years. And I do have a shop on Antique Row now, and I do support this number 3.
Number 3.
But I have another suggestion that's off the wall. I'm hearing impaired,
Mhm.
and I didn't hear a lot of what went on when some of the people were speaking. And I was wondering if the microphones could be louder or people could be asked to speak in them a little bit, because I missed a lot of things tonight. And I'm sure you're probably not aware of it, especially if you do hear, okay. But when you get old like me, things like this happen. So you might want to think about getting the microphone just a little bit louder for those of us who are hearing impaired.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. I'm sorry you
Thank
didn't
you.
speak
No.
up and say that I can't hear you.
Thank you.
Okay,
And
what's that?
Matt's saying, for future reference, the speaker is in the back, so if you sit a little closer to the back, you may be able to hear the microphone.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine. And we'll talk louder too, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But never be afraid to say, speak up.
Yeah,
We are happy to do that.
thank you.
Okay, so I think we're good, and we will let everybody know when we'll bring this back on the agenda, but we'll be looking more for design and with the 2 options that the council kind of split on tonight. Okay? All right. Moving on. All right, so let's go down. Tom, looks like you're up.
Thanks.
Yeah, it is. We'll do it.
Throw it down.
I'm trying to get the people that are here taken care of first. Yes. Go ahead, Tom, sorry.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tom Brault. I'm the president of Woodside Builders, and I'm here this evening to answer any questions and support the town on adding a public improvement at the end of Kaiser Place, just off of the intersection of Knowles and Summit Avenue. Really at your service, Madam Mayor, and if you want to ask questions or whatever, we have the materials and we're ready to finish a public improvement item early.
Matt, do you want to just quickly go over?
The town previously provided the end of Kaiser Place as designated the public right of way as a public plaza to help offset the requirement for the Flats project, which is actually located on the north side of Knowles Avenue. So not on the same side where the existing plaza is going to be located, as a requirement with Montgomery planning for public space. Mr. Brault started, I guess we'll call it phase 1 of the plaza last year and completed that. And he has requested to move forward with what he's classifying as phase 2 of the plaza prior to the construction of the Flats project. The staff asked him to hold off. Mr. Brault is here this evening to request permission to move forward to complete the plaza prior to starting construction on the Flats project.
What is the status of the Flats project? I mean, I understood you had it up for sale. Is that correct?
No,
So what's the status?
we're trying to break ground between July 1 and September 6th.
Okay, have you submitted for permits?
Yes. 2 years ago.
So that fast, huh?
It's been grueling.
Yeah, I bet.
Tom, are you missing permits from the county? Or just what you've submitted for them, but what's the status of all?
We're close to achieving them. There are a number of items that we need to break ground this summer.
Correct.
We look forward to partnering with the town. There are a couple items with you all that would be helpful. And there's a couple items with the county that we're working through right now.
And why do you want to do this now?
Because we have the material there at the end of the road, and it's just better to finish it rather than move the material 3 or 4 times.
So on this bigger sheet that we've been given, is phase 1 blue and phase 2 green?
So this is what was included within the covenant that we signed with the Flats project. And the green is essentially phase 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So he's done blue
he's done blue,
and he wants to do green.
correct.
What do we think of that from the staff perspective?
Um,
I mean, would that make
Yeah,
it?
why did you ask him to hold off?
we asked him to hold off because he does not have the building permits for the Flats project. We wanted him to start the project at the Flats before he proceeded with the public space part of the agreement for the plaza.
And what is the risk to us if I hear he's gonna start July, to September. What is the risk to us if he does the green now? And something happens with the project across the street?
We are just looking, the position was the sidewalk was put in part of the agreement with the past. And we were looking at maybe just making a simple connection and then waiting for the completion of the project for the public plaza to be put in with the building permit of the project. Like I said, the staff's position on this was we wanted to hold off until we actually had the building permits and the construction project begin on the Flats project. So we knew that the project was going to move forward.
But is there a risk?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Is phase 2 both sections of green? Tom?
I don't think this is elevated, isn't it?
Forgive me, I'm not sure exactly what you're.
It's on the screen on the TV.
There's the section of green that's in the 10509 Flats parcel, and then there's a section of green that's at the end of Kaiser Place.
I don't think they're relevant. They're not tied together per se.
And so, but you're talking about just the part at the end of Kaiser Place.
Yeah, we have all the
Okay.
materials there. It's more convenience to the new homeowners.
Sure.
We're very happy to welcome 6 new homeowners to Kensington.
Yep.
Having the road sort of unfinished and the debris in the way is a problem. I wasn't actually aware of why. We've enjoyed the partnership with the town. I must speak up in public, and I hope everyone can hear me well. The Honorable Jared Sullivan just came in from the state of Maryland, the District 18 team. I'm very warmed to see him because of how just a great group of representatives for our community. The entire District 18 team is really dedicated. I hope Kensington understands how lucky everybody is to have you all, and everybody cares so much about the local community. At any rate, we were just trying to make people happy and do the work early. There's an economic motivator for us that my crew can do it cheaper without burdening a general contractor when we get going later. So it's easier for us to do it now with our own crew and who just finished building the plaza, make the townhouse people happy. And I don't see any personal risk. I did study it at length. Thank you very much, Matt. All of this work is directly in the town right of way. So we are technically not entering the state right of way, which is an important feature to mention. And we're not in the county right of way either. And I thought the Honorable Sue Ellen, the town attorney, did a fabulous job on the covenant, and I thank you for that. And we executed mutually, and we're happy to do it. So it's more of a burden to the homeowners in the community to look at the mess if we don't do it.
Sure.
Nate's got a question
Yeah.
too, so.
Go on.
I just was curious if you could describe this. What is the intention for phase 2? Is it only adding some of the bricks that you brought? And I thought there was some greenery, if I remember, some tree planting. Is that included, or is it just bricks? I thought so.
I did review the agreement with Park and Planning, and you're looking at an exhibit from the signature set on the Flats project. And to my surprise, it did not include any greenery as a requirement. But I thought Matt and Alex were incredibly lovely and very wonderful to work with on the streetscape on the front side of the townhouse project. We were asked to add an extra tree at no expense, and it laid out really well. And the approval was for 3 street trees, and we were more than happy to make everybody happy and put in 4.
I thought
So-
they were supposed to be 4.
No, I think Matt read wrong. You know, it's confusing history. I guess the point I'm making is we would do the greenery that we presented to Connor and the Development Review Board, and we would do that early. So we have no problem doing that. It's not expensive, and we'd love to partner with Alex and Matt again and pick out the right ones and make it happen. The plan you're looking at shows 3.
I see 4.
And
I see 4.
I'm talking about where we're cutting the pavement.
Mm-hmm.
So forgive me for those that are online, if you want me to walk back.
Sorry.
But and I don't know if you can see this well, but the scope of services we were looking to do early as a benefit would be to saw cut the end of the road. It's removing about 10 feet of the pavement of the end of Kaiser Place and replacing that with plantings. Okay. And it's about a 10-foot wide walking path that we're required under the flats to do. And it would be ADA related, and it goes, it extends to the south side.
Okay. Anne, I see your hand up. Did you have a question?
Yeah, my question was similar to Nate's, and I wanted to know, and this is something we can follow up on, just to understand a little bit better what the plans are for planting and greenery. I think this came up before, that some of the members of our Greenscape committee would love to provide input. And, you know, there'd been some comments about Nandina and other things that were planted before that we'd like to help shape that if possible. But I'm glad to hear that it will incorporate greenery. I think that's really important. And at this point, if we were able to have that type of consultation, I think I would be in support of going ahead and getting this done, because I agree it doesn't look great unfinished.
So is the material that's stockpiled, that's the pavers, right? No, there's no
Yes.
trees waiting to be installed that are in bushels. And
Correct. No trees have been purchased yet.
so I'm not hearing anybody expressing concern about installing the pavers. And if we want a consulting role as to what trees get planted, that seems to not hold up the pavers. I guess, and Matt, I'd sort of like to ask you, do you have concerns about the build quality or something of the pavers area that he's proposing?
Not necessarily. I mean,
Can he work with you and have, if he's doing something you don't like, you know, work it out?
So we, at least phase 1, the base was put down by our contractor. There was an agreement between Mr. Brawl and our contractor for that, and then Tom's team came in and put the rest of the pavers in. I don't know if there's an agreement for phase 2 with that or not. Obviously, we can make that connection again. There is the vegetation requirement within the covenant that was signed by the town and recorded. It shows what benches are required, the vegetation, the plantings, everything like that. So it's already recorded in the covenant.
Okay.
The staff's position was simply, we just wanted to hold off. We wanted, you know, the council would get feedback before we move forward with phase 2, prior to the flats having a permit on file and construction beginning. So.
Okay.
Is there anything else that Tom would need outside of, is there any permits from us that he would need to do this? Any bonds that he would need?
There's a row bond on file for the entire project.
Okay.
There's actually multiple row bonds. One's for utility, one is for work within the public right of way. The materials are at the end of the street now. Sidewalk's been installed. Mr. Brault has repaid the town for the sidewalk installation. So the opportunity to make the connection or to move into phase two is.
And that is part of the motivation. We are trying to get our bonds back. And obviously you can't get a bond back with a bucket of bricks. So it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg, but it is a bit of a juxtaposition. We need town help to finish getting the overall building permit and the project going, and I wanted to be clear about that. And the help has been going wonderful, and we really appreciate everybody on that. This was just trying to be nice and finish it a bit early, and I don't see any risk to anybody.
Okay.
Tom,
We couldn't agree more about the greenscape, and
Tom, why did you have me carry in some bricks with you? Was there a decision to be made around these brick colors?
well, to the great work of the community here, I found it entertaining when I was chastised about 7 years ago, and I said, why don't you just make it like the Bethesda brick pavers, right? And I was very noted that Kensington wanted its own paver color and its own approach.
Yeah,
So
I don't
this-
recall that conversation, but
Anyway, I remember maybe it was a DRB with
yeah, it
Connor.
could be.
But
DRB
anyway,
committee, they're
we
wild bunch.
kept our commitment.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, well, council, do you have any further questions for Mr. Brault?
No.
Okay, anyone in the audience have a question for Mr. Brault? I can't see everybody online. Nobody has a question? Okay. All right, do you want a motion or do you want to, no? Okay. We have a consensus that, or how long do you think this will take?
In May.
May?
So
Okay.
I think mid-May, certainly by the end of the month of May, sure.
Okay,
So we wanted it finished and sort of happy for the summer.
okay.
And Tom, I think this is an obvious, but I'll ask it anyways. At the completion of this portion of the plaza, there will be no more construction material at the end of Kaiser Place?
Correct. We will then move it all. Yeah, it is noted that a great citizen of the town, Al Carr, is here. So we've always respected everybody's concerns about the bus movements and the whole interaction of that intersection in general. But we would clean everything up, get it out of the way, and put it on our parking lot at the north of Brainerd and Summit. So we kept the 34 space parking lot up there. So we wouldn't even put it on.
They'd be out of town.
Yeah. Man, that's funny, Trace.
Yeah, they'd be out of town. Okay, all right. So, Ann, Nate, Connor, Darren, everybody consensus for them to go ahead and move on? Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you very much. All right. Agenda again. All right, so we're gonna move down to number 4. And we've should we stand and applaud you, Jared, or? Yes, please come to the front.
Did you get the garbage cans out that night?
Well, we very much appreciate you coming in, particularly at a late night, we know on Monday. And got most everything done. I'm sure
About.
huh? They were Monday.
Okay.
They're last, I know what day it is. Obviously, you know.
Monday late.
Monday
very
late, Monday
early
night. Maybe you could
morning.
say it went into Tuesday.
It did.
But I'm sure the Key Bridge probably really, which was a horrible.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, we have budget issues that we're working through, and one of the biggest budget issues that we were trying to resolve was our transportation trust fund. And as we were getting close to resolving that, the unimaginable issue with the bridge just certainly has not helped things. But the way the state has rallied around the community and the way our congressional delegation and the president have really rallied around Baltimore has been incredible. So, we will rebuild, but it definitely did not make things any easier.
Yeah.
But I think, absent the issue that I'm going to talk about, I really think we made, lemonade out of lemons. We certainly haven't fixed all of our issues. We're going to have to come back next year and tackle some of our structural deficit issues. But I think on the trust fund, we made a really good down payment on transportation funding. We'll have to finish that next year, but hopefully, I know MML is going to be pretty happy because we restored all the highway user revenue cuts that the governor had proposed. So no matter what, we've restored that. We added about 330 million in new revenue in the trust fund side of things. Again, that fills the hole about maybe halfway. But we got a firm commitment from the Senate president that we were going to come back next year and finish the job. But that will allow a lot of state of good repair, a lot of the highway user, well, all of the highway user revenues to be restored, the locally operated transit system funding, which for Montgomery County is really huge. It funds about $18 million worth of ride-on, and will allow MDOT to start future work on capital projects that were originally cut from the budget in December. And then next year, like I said, we're going to come back and finish it. The other really good news for our community is sort of a roller coaster ride. In November, MDOT released that they were going to be adding new service on the Brunswick line, which some of us have been hoping for and working on literally for decades. And so then the budget came out in December, axed, it's about a $7 million cost for that new service. They axed it. The 150 million that the governor put in for from the rainy day fund initially restores that service. So we are awaiting details, hopefully later in the spring.
So what is that service possibility?
It's probably, my understanding is going to be a number of midday trains, but they haven't come to full details on it yet.
Okay.
But that 7 million covers the additional personnel costs and maybe one or two new pieces of rolling stock, but I'm not 100% sure. We're hoping to get an update from them shortly. We'll make sure that you all get that. And then the other big thing, obviously, for not only Kensington, but our region, we begin to tackle the problems with Metro. And that's going to be sort of a bigger issue between Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia.
Right.
And there was actually an announcement today that MCOG is, sort of has a handshake agreement to fix this within the next year with all the regional governments. But the governor's budget, even before we restored funding, included 150 million for this year and 150 million for next year. And then for all years after, it's an additional 250 million.
Wow.
So it's a pretty sizable down payment for Maryland to restore and get Metro's budget back to where it needs to be. And Metro's shortfalls, frankly, some of it is the overall makeup of the budget, but inflation hit Metro's budget pretty hard. And then Metro
COVID
actually,
hit,
yeah, it hit everybody. But Metro actually also gave a substantial amount of money back to the state of Maryland and Virginia during the pandemic when they had federal aid. But what that did was it actually sort of reset Metro's budget increases by a multiplier every year. And when they gave that money back, it set the multiplier lower than it should be. And so with the expiration of federal funds and sort of the lower threshold that they were at because they were good neighbors, so to speak, Metro's budget also had a hole. So we're hoping, fingers crossed, that MCOG can come to a regional agreement that we will have to consider in the next couple of years, but we don't want to be back in this position in 5 or 10 years after we fix it now. So spent a lot of time on transportation stuff.
And rightly so. I'm a little disappointed that electric cars were only charged $50 a year for.
No, it's 100 annual.
Oh, good. Okay.
And or it's 100 for electric, and I believe it's 125 for, or I'm sorry, it's 125 for electric, for zero emission electrics, and then 100 annually for plug-in hybrids, plug-in or hybrids.
Okay, well, I think everybody should pay their fair share to keep those roads going.
Well, and I was going to say, and I'm not 100% sure if this also interacts with it, but there is, it does. There is an additional registration. There will be an additional registration increase for cars based on the weight. And obviously EVs tend to be heavier because batteries weigh more. So do not quiz me, Connor, on exactly how much your Tesla weighs, but I would imagine that that is probably one of the tiered thresholds.
Compared to my Mazda, it's probably.
But that was, again, one of the other things, one of the ways that we generated some of this new transportation money. And I think pretty reasonable was if you're buying a car that's heavier, more wear and tear on the roads. And so we did tier the registration fees to reflect that. So
why not just get rid of the registration credit? This was when somebody buys an EV, the state gives them like $2,000, $2,400 towards the registration.
Well,
And-
it's,
and so
it's
now
off the,
you-
it's off the total price of the vehicle.
No,
So-
it's the 6% up to $50,000. So you're paying up to, it's
No.
like 2,500 of a registration credit, but now you're taking it back in an additional tax.
So do not quote me on this, but I don't believe that it's a registration credit. I believe it's just a straight tax credit. And we modified it this year, I think, to, I believe this year, to mirror what's now at the federal level, that it's no longer, it can be essentially a credit instead of a rebate when you file your taxes. So I don't believe it's a registration. It's just a straight, you buy a car, meets a certain threshold, you get a it's a $3,000 credit. So
You're still taking it back.
I mean, I guess the difference is, you know, you're buying your annual registration, which we now allow people to pay in installments, is, you know, a smaller amount of money versus if you're taking the amount straight off the top of the car, it's going to incentivize people in a way. And actually, I know this was a debate on the House floor, but EVs are almost at parity with combustion engines in the last report that we saw.
Which
So,
is great. I mean, it really
Great,
is.
exactly.
It is. It's really great.
again, happy to talk about transportation, but I know that was not the topic of discussion for today. But happy to take any and all questions. So the Mayor Furman had texted me asking to come and give sort of an update on Senate Bill 1027, which was the property tax appeal legislation. It was also House Bill 1488. Thank you. But for all intents and purposes, 1027 was the bill that actually moved. So, you know, I think as most of you know, this was the legislation that changed the definition of taxpayer in standards of appeals and then would have been retroactive. So SB 1027 was, for all intents and purposes, the legislation that was actually moving, came out of the Senate Budget and Tax Committee, was introduced by the chair of B&T, Chairman Gazzoni, and then was cross-filed in the House by the chair of the Ways and Means Committee that has jurisdiction over tax issues in the House, Vanessa Atterbury. I think for some of us, this caught us by a little bit by surprise, and actually appreciate some of the residents who had emailed. So that was really helpful. There's a lot of bills that move. I think we had over 2,500 this year, so keep an eye on everything. And so it was really helpful to find that out. The bill passed the Senate, I believe, unanimously. The Budget and Tax Committee made a small change to it. We tried to weigh in, we tried to have the county weigh in before it moved out of the Budget and Tax Committee, because with the retroactive provision in it, would have cost Montgomery County, I think, about $450,000 in tax revenue, and it would have cost the town, I think, what, it was 160. I looked at the fiscal note, but it's a couple of days ago. And so I think a lot of us had concerns over that. We often go to Annapolis to fight tooth and nail for every dollar for our county and our local jurisdictions. And so a bill that frankly was introduced at the behest of, we believe, a handful of people by some individuals who often like to use outsized influence, frankly, without naming them. We were a little frustrated as I think as a delegation in the House. And so when the bill came over to the House of Delegates, we are very well represented on the Ways and Means Committee. Delegate Wilkins, who represents Silver Spring, is the vice chair of the committee. Delegate Polakovich-Carr, who is a subcommittee chair and kind of one of the gurus on tax policy in the state. She represents the city of Rockville. And we have a couple of other folks on the committee as well. So a number of us kind of huddled, and, you know, I think there was a policy disagreement, and then there was also the nature of this being retroactive, which I know the chair of the subcommittee of local revenues, Delegate Attar, requested an attorney general's letter. The ruling from our attorney general for the General Assembly was that the likely retroactive nature of the bill was not super likely to pass constitutional muster if challenged. And so I think even before we received this letter, frankly, again, many of us had an issue with what seemed to be a bill that was targeting revenue loss for just two jurisdictions. And again, it's hard for us as legislators to stomach our jurisdictions having to give money back.
But this is a statewide bill, correct?
It is a statewide bill, but in the fiscal note that the Department of Legislative Services put together, it was clear that as far as they knew, this really only applied to the two properties that were challenged in the town of Kensington. So it would have cost, again, Montgomery County local revenue, and then it would have cost the town revenue. So that was a huge issue for us, even absent the constitutional issues with the provision. So, you know, again, well represented on the committee. I weighed in, as did, Delegate Shetty, both as members of leadership and the speakers team, just kind of put this on folks' radar that typically we don't advance bills that tend to take revenue back from jurisdictions. But again, there was also a policy concern, that I think some folks on Ways and Means had, that this policy has been on the books for a long time. And if you read the Attorney General's ruling that we got, it does actually make it pretty clear that in 1985, the Attorney General, at that point, Attorney General Sachs actually, and the Supreme Court had ruled that the intention of this provision, as it was written in statute, was to give any taxpayer the ability to challenge an assessment. I think as the committee
That they don't own.
That they don't own, yeah. So I think that is a policy area that clearly the House and the Senate wanted to grapple with. So what ultimately wound up happening was the Ways and Means Committee, it seems like, and in talking to my colleagues on it, made the decision that they were comfortable leaving the commercial property assessment as is, essentially that anybody had a vested interest in a commercial property paying a fair rate of taxation. They did add a fee provision to it that said if you did want to challenge a property that was not yours, that you didn't have a personal interest in, there was, I think they applied a new $100 fee to it. And they did change it to say that you could not challenge the property assessment of somebody's residential property.
Because right now you can.
Right now you can.
And I think that got lost, that people were just thinking it was commercial,
Right.
but it is also residential, which
Exactly. And I
seems a
think,
little odd if you don't like your neighbor's
Well,
new addition and you say, hey, I think you need to be reassessed.
so
'cause
that
I don't like
again,
your addition.
I think in conversations with the folks on Ways and Means, that seemed like a very reasonable compromise to say that, yes, if you're feuding with your neighbor, or maybe you're interested in buying a property, down the block or in another neighborhood that you want to lower the assessment on, you shouldn't necessarily have the ability to do that on a residential property, but the committee felt that the sort of checks and balances on commercial property was reasonable. Again, they did add that fee. So that bill, the bill as amended in the Ways and Means Committee, I guess early this week, late last week, basically struck the retroactive provision. Again, I think there were concerns with that, and then constitutional issues. It then amended the bill to leave the commercial property intact, add the fee, and then strike the ability for anybody to challenge something on a residential property. That bill passed out of the Ways and Means Committee, I believe unanimously, passed out of the House, I believe unanimously, but there were a lot of things that sort of got a little gummed up at the end, to be honest with you. We had a number of bills that kind of died, withered on the vine a little bit. I had the only bill that I'm actually personally most disappointed about was a local bill that didn't make it out of the Judicial Proceedings Committee. So there were some things that just ran out of time. And so this is a bill, it was sent back to the Senate. I don't know exactly how the Budget and Tax Committee would have considered this. I don't know if they would have just concurred or if they were wedded to the bill that they passed out of the committee. But the long story short is there wasn't enough time for the two committees to either conference or reconcile their differences. So I do not know what this means for the bill for next year. Again, I think from our perspective, what came out of the Ways and Means Committee seems pretty reasonable. And,
Well, most likely if it's brought back, it's not going to be on an emergency basis.
No. And I was going to say, I mean, the emergency nature of it, I think was also, I think some folks on the Ways and Means Committee, again, felt like this is something that's been on the books for a long time and it hasn't really been an issue. And again, there was an intent for the way that the statute was written. And so, in talking to some of my colleagues on the committee, I believe they were a little hesitant also about the emergency nature. And I think the bill, now that you mentioned it, I believe the House bill struck the emergency provision and just made it a normal, and Al, you may know this better. I believe tax bill is going to effect in July. Policy bills tend to go into effect in October. So this would have gone into effect as normal on July 1 of this year had it passed. So.
Okay. Well, we haven't, I mean, Matt can correct me, but the particular property we're talking about, they have not paid the property tax. So they've not, whatever this windfall that we're supposedly getting, we've not received it.
Yeah.
Or the county, because they're appealing it.
Right.
And
Right.
quite honestly, they should appeal it, because the way, or you have it in front of you, Connor. It's, I mean, they didn't raise the actual property tax. They raised, what do they call it? What's on the improvements? $30 million.
Yeah, the land value to the dollar unchanged, which just strikes this. That seems weird.
Yeah.
And then, the last permit that was pulled, not sign wise, but was in 1987. So how in the world did it raise $30 million? Which just, I mean, that's. I know, I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
saying that this is why we didn't really jump into it because
Yeah.
the appeal process is going to go through. They
Yeah.
haven't paid us.
Yeah,
So they're gonna obviously, I think, adjust that because that would be the most expensive piece of property in town over Modena, over Kaiser. I mean,
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense. And the fact that we don't like the idea of third parties, particularly on residential property, which seemed to got
Yeah.
completely
yep,
not mentioned
yep.
that currently you can appeal a residential property.
Correct. Well, and again, I think that is why the Ways and Means Committee, chose to make the amendments that they did.
Right.
We obviously don't influence SDAT's process in reassessment.
Sure.
That's for them to do it. But again, I think there were concerns about a bill that seemed to be targeting two specific assessments.
Correct. And I get that.
Yeah.
But I think if I got a 30 million increase on my property, I would repeal that.
When you say two assessments, well, I know about 3,700.
I guess maybe it was just the one. For some reason, I
there
thought it
another
was
one?
two, but
One in Rockville. I don't know. It seemed in our,
I don't have the fiscal note in front of me, but I thought the fiscal note mentioned two properties, but maybe it was just the one.
well, or it has two addresses. It's
It has
just
two
possible. It's
addresses,
got
yeah.
two pieces of property.
I can pull right on it.
I do think the,
And the other thing, Jared, is when you talked about the Attorney General looked back to, I think it was 1985. What was, do we know how many of these assessment appeals were filed by people unrelated to the property owners in those 45 years, 50 years?
No, I do not.
Okay. It almost seems like, I mean, I hear that they said this was intended to be this way. Then it never, I think, hasn't been used that way for the past 45 years. It was used that way in this one instance. And then the legislature was asked to say, is this really what you mean?
Right.
And the answer seems to be no from the broadest perspective, but we may allow it in these limited situation of commercial with a fee.
Yeah. Well, again, I was not here in 1985, so I'm just telling you.
how old were you in 1985?
Depending on when in 1985, it was either very young or non-existent. Again, the Attorney General's letter makes it clear that there was a ruling in the Maryland Supreme Court made a ruling that said every taxpayer has a financial interest in seeing that all property in the state, properly the subject of taxation, should be taxed. It goes on as well. And then the Attorney General Sachs in 1985 made a ruling that saying the statute authorizing any taxpayer to appeal a property tax assessment historically has been understood as granting a right to seek a higher assessment on another taxpayer's property. So, I mean, again, that was the ruling in 85. I don't know why anybody hadn't used it since then. But again, I think the reasonableness of taking residential property out of it, I think for all of us, as we
It could
considered it.
create a lot of chaos if you have a lot of armchair tax assessors that are just
Well, again, at the
picking and
end,
choosing. I don't know.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's up to SDAT to make the determination. I mean, I'll be honest with you, there has been an issue, I know that counties have raised on numerous occasions of, frankly, developers buying a property,
Mhm.
emptying the property out.
Right,
The developers can ask for reassessment, dramatically lowering the assessment because a vacant property is obviously assessed significantly lower than a full property. Then they
Right.
go back, make their improvements, and there isn't necessarily the opportunity for the county to go back and reassess. That's an issue that has come up. I know that's been raised by several counties, not just Montgomery.
right.
So I am not an expert on the assessment process by any stretch, and I don't serve on the Ways and Means Committee, but again, I think smarter people than me had considered this for a long time. And as we looked at it, again, I think the committee made a determination that residential property versus commercial property is a different determination.
Okay.
And if ultimately SDAT makes a determination on the value of a property, that's on them. The appeal does not mean that the property value has to change.
Right.
It just means that SDAT takes another look at it. And I will admit, I'm not 100% an expert. I'm not 100% certain exactly how the appeal process works, what they, what a resident or a taxpayer would have to do in order to even just initiate the appeal. So, again, we'll leave that to SDAT. I don't serve on the committee that has sort of the nuts and bolts control over that, but again, that seemed to be the Ways and Means consideration. And my sense would be if this bill comes back next year, which it probably likely will, it will probably be in the compromise form that Ways and Means has put it together.
Well, I definitely agree. I think third party on residential is probably a good idea.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the appeal will work itself out. And then the county and the town will be awarded whatever the, they come up with. I don't think it'll be what it currently is at, though. I mean,
Yeah.
I think, we were speculating that maybe the cost of the property included the actual business, which was purchased at the same time, which I think would be a different type of tax, not part of your property tax. But I'm not a property tax lawyer. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for advocating for us, and all the other, I guess, all the other residents who did so. I was under the impression that because it was under appeal that we weren't, that we were advised not to take an active stance on it, but sounds like you were fighting very hard on our behalf, so thank you.
I mean, again.
And the rest of the delegation too. One question I had for next year, if it comes up, is this something that, I think it'd be interesting to hear from you too, Al, because you did file an appeal of the initial assessment, but the residential versus commercial, where the delegation stands on that issue. I know you said generally the
I was going to say, so
committee.
yeah, I mean, so everybody theoretically in the House is on record. Actually, here, I can pull it up. I believe the vote on the Senate version of the bill as amended.
That was unanimous.
Was unanimous,
Yeah.
yeah. So technically, we were all on, or I'm sorry, it was 101 to 34. I think
For the Senate?
for the Senate bill.
Yeah,
I think to be honest with you, I think when our Republican colleagues see anything with tax in it, they automatically vote no.
Oh.
And this bill, no offense, but this passed, I believe, I think it was sine die, and we were moving very quickly through bills. And often people who don't serve on the committee, who just sort of see something, see it, and often vote no. So it was 101 to 34, but I believe all the Democrats voted yes. So yeah, we did this on sine die. So my guess would be that the delegation would be in the same position, and it wouldn't be a local bill again. So the delegation really, our delegation doesn't have an opportunity to sort of weigh in or offer any formal. So if it's a local bill, it will not be considered by the full chamber unless it gets out of delegation. This one, as introduced, will just go right to the Ways and Means Committee. And again, everybody's on record supporting this. So I would assume, again, not having talked to Chair Atterbury, I would assume that this bill will be back next year, probably in the form that it passed.
But obviously not as an emergency bill, which makes
Correct.
it better anyway in the sense of working its way through the system.
Yeah. And again, I think in our minds, whether you agree or disagree with the assessment, we felt like that should be worked out by SDAT. And they should be the ones to ultimately make that determination. And I think my sense of what the committee's action was that, $100 fee may deter somebody from doing it punitively.
Well, and I, as I said, I think the assessment will be worked out through the appeal.
Correct.
And then they will pay whatever comes up because, or whatever's determined.
Yep.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Not to you, but actually to Matt, because I think in the explanation of taking a non-position, there's an issue around whether we would actually get a windfall or not with some adjustment that would need to
The
be
constant
made.
yield, I think.
Can you describe that a little bit more for the rest of the community?
So when we, in our operating budget, this is written out. So if you're not following me, read our operating budget, it's written out. We were concerned when this first was brought before us that we were going to lose our tax exemption because of the $55 million in increased assessment. The assessment, we found out and clarified with the state that the constant yield was removed last year. So it no longer became an issue. However, within the budget, honestly, we are very concerned about the assessment. We do not believe it's worth $76 million based on anything else in this community. we subtracted $55 million out of our assessment base on our revenues for this fiscal year with the anticipation that this will be appealed and won at a level that it is now or prior to 2022 or somewhere, in a more reasonable range of 30 million, 25 to 30 million dollars. So we didn't want to risk within the budget stating that we were going to receive revenues that we didn't think we were really going to receive. So it's written out in our operating budget that we did reduce the assessable base $55 million in anticipation of the appeal being won. If you look at the surrounding properties that have been improved, they are nowhere near this. They are anywhere between 13 million and $25 million.
Which properties are?
So, Kaiser Permanente, who has seen significant improvements over the last 24 months, is valued at around $13, $14 million. Okay. Now, the lot is smaller, but they've seen improvements. They're a medical facility. They have permits constantly. Medina was a huge project in this town, one of the largest projects we've seen. Their assessment value is, it was in the 20 range. So to have a $76 million assessment, we've always known that this property is worth a lot of money. It's a very large property. They've not had a building permit improvement on file with us since 1986. If you look at the SDAT reassessment, the entire increase goes to these structures, improvements. There's no change in the land value. So we were concerned about that. The public record of the sale included the physical business of the storage unit. They took the assessment value that included the physical business, the operational business of the storage unit. So, when we were looking at this, we're not looking at the bill. We were looking at it as revenue for us. How are we going to determine this? Is this going to affect us down the road? Do we think we're actually going to get these revenues? We did not feel that comfortable. So we made the determination to remove the phased-in assessment on the property.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question, Matt. Thank you for that explanation. Did you, in the process of trying to figure out what was going on with the assessment, as you noted, it's out of line with other nearby properties. Did you talk to SDAT? Or do you know if they're aware that the town has these concerns?
Yeah, so we spoke with SDAT. The commercial properties are actually done at a local level. So SDAT has a Montgomery County division that does the evaluation. It's not the state. There is an appeal process. Obviously, we're not going to get involved in that. So we're going to let that handle itself. The property would have been reassessed within the general cycle in 2025. My guess is the appeal again will probably come in a lower rate. We're not really sure. We looked at this more of a budgeting standpoint more than taking a position on the bill. We just wanted to make sure that our revenue streams were as accurate as we could. We didn't want to say we were going to generate revenue on something that we didn't. We run into a budget issue. So.
Okay, and one more clarifying question. I had a hard time hearing you at the beginning of your statement. Am I correct that you said the constant yield clause was removed or altered last year and would not affect this situation?
Correct. So the constant yield was removed. As long as we keep the tax rate the same as we had it the previous year, it is not classified as an increase. Previously, if your revenues exceeded $25,000, you would get, if it's less than that, you get an exemption. Otherwise, you'd have to basically put out to the public that you're providing a tax or you're increasing the property taxes. So that was removed. So that kind of took that.
And also to, if we raise the tax rate, the actual action we can take, then we have to notice.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think there was a lot of, smaller municipalities like us. I mean, if you have an assessment, if you're in this assessment cycle, I mean, you could go over that exemption without realizing it very quickly. And then all of a sudden you have a tax increase, but it's really not generating that much.
And then the result is we would have to reduce our tax rate.
Correct.
To keep constant yield.
And what we were very concerned about is we thought we were going to lose our exemption, have to lower our tax rate and then not get that additional phase in. So, the budget has been a challenge for us. We were trying to figure things out in the beginning when we were normally getting solid numbers. So just to get ahead of the list, there are going to be some amendments that we'll make at the next meeting to the budget. It's not as clean as it's been the last few years as we've been trying to figure out some numbers, so.
Yeah, and my only comment back to Jared is, I appreciate you letting SStat do their thing. Why I was confused in my comments to the town manager were that when I look at the SStat assessment of 3,700 Pliers Mill, the land value is completely unchanged over time at 7.9 million. And all they did was alter the improvements number to get to the sale price. So that, I mean, the assessment is 76.25 million, which is, I'm looking up the exact sale price of that property. And so I wonder if that's a common practice of, well, if that's what the market bears, then that must be what it's worth. And we'll just, that's not really an assessment, that's just changing.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, I'm not an expert on the way that FSTAT does its assessments. You know, I think in general, we, being the General Assembly, are hesitant to sort of step in when it seems like a bill is targeted at one specific property. That there is a process that SStat has to review things, there's a process that people have to appeal on both sides. And so, you know, absent whether the town or the county ever see the additional revenue, in addition to the fiscal issues, we wanted to just make sure that this wasn't something that was rushed through sort of fly by night, that, you know, there was an opportunity for the committees to fully consider it. There was an opportunity for SStat to work its process out. I mean, and that's, I think, why the committee, why Ways and Means made the decision that they did.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, to the town manager's point earlier, so Medina's property, 10540 Metropolitan, has an assessed value, total value of 25 million. But it's a $75 million development.
It was a $75 million project.
So how it came out, like, again.
Yeah.
But it seems like if you do an arm's length transaction, then it's the full market value. But if you build a brand new, so I'm thinking about all these other jurisdictions where $100 million buildings are going in, but they're being assessed at 30 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
Versus.
Buy a property and then.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so I have not dug in super deeply, but that is.
I think
interesting.
somebody needs to be on the Ways and Means Committee.
That is an interesting conversation. Yeah, we deal with how to spend the money, not how to raise the how to adjust the tax rates. And I'm sure every developer that is listening is probably having a slight heart attack as we talk through the difference between building versus transacting. But that's an interesting question, Connor. I mean, certainly, you know, we've worked with SStat before. I did have a bill 2 years ago. We discovered that there was no process actually to get a defunct business removed from, we had a constituent reach out who was being harassed by process servers because somebody who had lived in their house 15 years earlier had defaulted on several loans, and that was the address listed on the business, even though they hadn't lived there. And SStat did not actually have a process, short of the business owner calling and removing their own address. There was no process for a resident or the occupier of that property to get that business removed. So we worked with SStat and actually got a process put in place.
Right.
But that's about as much as I know in terms of my level of expertise on the minutia of SStat. But that's an interesting question. I mean, certainly we can pose it to them and talk through it. Yeah, I mean, I know enough about tax policy to tell you that often these kinds of things are made deliberately. Certainly at the federal level, there's usually very deliberate choices. So I wonder if there was at some point a deliberation made that if you spend the money to develop a property, the assessment should be different. That's just me speculating. I don't know. It's an interesting question though.
Obviously, we want everybody to pay their fair share. That's for sure, because, you know, the county, state, you know, town, you know, we all need the extra money. But yet on the other hand, you don't want to discourage people from purchasing properties and doing developments because you make money that way too.
Correct.
So
Right.
there's that fine
Yeah.
line there that you have to walk. So it's 10:09. We've not had the budget hearing, so I think one last comment. Okay.
The incentivization, also to the mayor's point, is what I don't, whether it's on residential property or commercial property, also a practice, I don't know that that's what's happening, but a practice that we're just gonna, whatever it sells for, that's the value.
Yeah.
Incentivizes those who can find creative ways to transact their property, maybe to another family member at a discounted rate, something that is less than what true market value would be. Not only diminishes the tax revenue to the taxing jurisdiction, but it puts them at an advantage over their neighbors who might not be able to do that. And if you can do it on commercial properties as well.
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
mhm.
Like I said, I do not know the
Just take
answer.
notes.
Yeah, I am jotting down issues and things to take back to SSAT at some point during the.
This
to
was
have a
all the
conversation.
discussion around this bill
Yep.
and this issue that led us to no position
Yeah.
and. Granted, and timing was favorable that you just finished your session and could talk about it.
Yeah,
Well, it's difficult for us. We don't, we should not be debating issues over the listserv, which is private. And we had not been meeting, so, we had not met
yeah,
to discuss it in public. So we really appreciate you coming back. It
Yeah.
didn't pass, so, we haven't received any money. I mean, there's just all the, nothing lost here, but I think it's been a teachable moment, educating us and on on this issue. So,
I think it has been a teachable moment for a lot of us.
yes,
Especially those of us that do not serve on the Ways and Means Committee.
but you should.
Well, I will say this, we're able to bring home the bacon to
Yeah.
the town. So we don't have the exact figures yet, but I think that the town will hopefully be receiving something for the mural projects, which we know we're really excited about.
Yes, I heard that.
Congratulations.
A grant, yeah.
Very
Yes,
thank
thank
you, Bart.
We will,
Mhm.
I believe so. I don't have the exact figures
The
yet.
last time I looked.
Yeah, no, it's in there. I just can't remember exactly how much it is.
Okay, well, I don't want to deny anyone in the audience or online if they have a question for Delegate Solomon. We are needing to close this up, but I do want to give people an opportunity. Not seeing any hands, so thank you so much.
I do have to say, by the
Appreciate it.
way to bury the lead on a new Carmen's coming in. You are going to
Yes.
bankrupt my family between Don Perez and Carmen's.
So you're gonna be spending more time.
Yes, that is our go-to ice cream place in Rockville, and now literally.
Yay, you
five-minute
can
walk from
walk
the
to
house.
it.
Yeah,
Excellent. So get pizza and then go to Carmen's and then grab a beer.
and then
You're set.
taco
Vintage and
for,
antique.
And then you can go
we
antique
go.
shopping.
Yes.
Yes,
They would prefer you shop after the beer.
yeah.
get the tacos, walk to the
Tacos.
antique stores, then get the beer.
Yes,
Exactly.
yeah. Yeah, you really could start at,
We will never have to leave Kensington
get some
again.
books, then go to Don Perez. Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
All right,
Thank you, Joe.
okay. So we're running a little late. I kind of would like to do the budget hearing. So if you guys don't mind,
Can we actually just start with ordinance 01?
one,
Yeah,
okay,
and then
sure.
And then move to the budget hearing.
Okay, then we can, then
Yeah.
Sue Ellen could be on her
Yeah.
merry way.
Yeah.
And then we'll go down to mayor and council and management staff and. So, all right. So number one, Matt,
Council ordinance number O-01-2024 is an ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Kensington authorizing the acquisition of certain property located at 105-286 St. Paul Street,
you have,
Kensington, Maryland, for a public purpose. The public hearing was held on March 20th, 2024. And the council will take a vote on adopting ordinance this evening. The public record closed at 4 p.m. this past Monday on April 8th. We did not receive any additional public comments. Everything we received was during the public hearing last month. Town Attorney Ferguson is here. She has finalized a purchase agreement for the property on St. Paul Street with Ms. Warner's counsel. If you have any questions, Ms. Ferguson?
yes, we're not taking any further comments from the public.
Right. Well, you know, though, of course, that the original ordinance was for a lesser price.
Yes.
Right.
Price that we
Yeah.
do have, so that amendment will have to be made.
And Connor has the amendment.
Right, and then you'll be adopting this purchase agreement then also in substantially the form.
In the same motion
Uh,
or separate motion?
I would go ahead and just adopt the ordinance first as amended and then
Okay.
do the purchase agreement.
Okay. All right. Council, do you have any questions for our town attorney or town manager? Not seeing any hands. All right. So, make a motion.
Anything from the public?
Oh, well, no, they can't speak.
And I would move that we adopt ordinance O-01-2024 as amended pertaining to the counteroffer proposal from Ms. Warner for a sale amount of $1,010,000.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
thank you, Ann. All right, yes, I would make we need a motion on the purchase agreement.
I move that we adopt the purchase agreement between the town of Kensington and 9323B and 9327 Fraser Avenue LLC as substantially drafted.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. All right,
Thank you, council.
you're welcome.
10528 St. Paul, the property we've been trying to acquire for
20
many, many years.
Many years, I think
almost
since,
my entire time here.
yeah,
So,
I know Sanford was
yeah,
working on that when
so
he was
we,
here.
We will look to hire a firm to do architectural design, and then we'll include the public on the design phase. Obviously, there's another property that we're looking at as well, but we needed to start here. So,
Yeah, no, I think we do, and we've spoken about this, is the Pepco property next door.
Thank you, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sue Ellen.
Before you this evening is ordinance number O-02-2024, a public hearing for an ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Kensington to appropriate and adopt the fiscal year 2024-2025 FY25 budget and to levy a tax on certain real and personal property under the provisions of 6-203 of the tax property article of the annotated code of Maryland as amended. I will give a brief overview of the budget. As I mentioned earlier this evening, this is not as clean as we've had the last 2 years. There were some challenges trying to determine the revenues. But Susan and I, have kind of gotten through that. Otherwise, some of the changes that we have in here, there are no property tax increases proposed. There's no property tax increases proposed. And some of the items that we are looking to overview are located within our operating budget, which was distributed to the public and the council on Monday evening. Just kind of quick overview. Our revenues are fairly strong. Most of our revenue increases are coming from income taxes. We are not seeing or anticipating the revenues from income that we did 2 years ago. But otherwise they're still strong over a 5-year period. We are seeing some increases in property values, mostly through redevelopment of existing residential. As anyone is aware, a lot of the houses, especially on the north side of town, they're being purchased, redeveloped, being sold at a higher market value, which increases the property value, which is a gain to our revenue streams. We've seen some slight increases from the county and the state over previous years that have helped generate revenues to go towards services such as parks and street maintenance and HUR. So those revenues remain strong. With regards to, there is a notation in the operating budget of our current fiscal year. There is a potential that we might need to require a budget amendment for our current fiscal year FY25. We'll know next month. We ran into an issue where we may have a negative fund balance. The negative fund balance is directly related to the ARPA funds not being spent as quickly as we had hoped. A couple of the projects that we're using the ARPA funds for have required some additional engineering, which has kind of pushed the expenses down the road. In order to get that off the books, we need to actually move forward with the projects. So we're not sure yet, but we may be requesting a budget amendment in May. I'm hoping to get around that hopefully one of the projects moves a little quicker than we're anticipating. But otherwise, our revenues are pretty solid overall within the town. On the expense side, on the staff side, we are requesting we got 3.6% COLA for the staff. That would be across the board. We do have a additional 1.4% increase with a couple positions. We are also requesting a reclassification and promotion of one of our public works employees to assistant public works supervisor. We are once again requesting part-time administrative help within the office, as where we're very small staff. So if something were to happen, it just gives us a little bit of money to bring in maybe a temp or something. And then we also are requesting additional funding for a fourth secondary enforcement officer, which we did last year as well. We're hoping to fill that position this year. On the general government side, and for the most part, the budget's pretty similar. We are requesting some town hall improvements to the drill hall, specifically related to painting and some drapes for the drill hall. So that is a large increase within town hall expenses. Within Public Works, we did put a line item in to finish and complete the street name signs for the town. Many of you have noticed that we're kind of switching out some of the street name signs. So we have an actual line item instead of going through the CIP to complete that hopefully in 2025. Kind of the main change within the budget, the thing that's really different is that staff is going to request a contract extension with our existing trash brush and recycling contractor on a 3-year agreement. We worked out a verbal agreement for a 5% increase from our current rates for next year. And then it would be tied to this consumer pricing index for the following 2 years. The preliminary numbers that we received from Ecology are better than the most recent bid that they were awarded with Garrett Park. So we're actually going to get a better rate than what they had just bid out. Within that contract, there's a proposal to put together a once-a-week town-wide composting program. It would not reduce the second trash collection within the town. There is a possibility that we could remove the second trash collection in the second or third year of the extended contract with Ecology. The composting collection would be, again, once a week. If we determine that it's not going well, we would be able to remove the contract. And the budget also proposes the purchase of a 13-gallon roll toter for composting for every resident in the town.
Is that, you had to wait a year for the composting?
So
How much
in
time?
Speaking with Ecology on Monday, we had proposed starting January 1st of 2025. Ecology could begin this as early as July 1. Now, we could not do that because we would not have the toters available by then. But we could start the program sooner than January 1st, 2025.
Okay.
Again, we're requesting this money in the budget. It doesn't mean that the council's, we're going to bring you at another council meeting, this proposed contract extension. Within the budget, we had to determine whether we could financially do this or not. So that's just really the biggest change in the budget, is that it would be adding a service to the community without reducing the second trash collection. Other than that, there's not a whole lot of changes. We kind of cleaned up a number of the line items you'll see from last year and this year. A couple of the numbers went down slightly just because we were able to tighten some of the numbers. But overall, it's pretty similar to last year. And as I mentioned earlier, we will put forth a few amendments next month within the budget. Just we were having some challenges with revenues when we first put this out. We put it out a little earlier than we have all the numbers. So,
Council, any questions?
Just, and it may be on this time, I think under the ecology one for compost, because we've been working toward how might we get to a townwide composting, and this is exciting to see if this is possible. We need to delve into the details. One, will the drop-ins here at Town Hall still be preserved and rolled under the ecology for those who might want to just bring it here?
sure. So we just signed a 1-year contract extension with Compost Crew to maintain the existing facility here.
Yep.
There is a possibility that once the M&T Bank property is acquired, we could move that over to M&T Bank, which would probably be a little more beneficial for the farmers market, since a number of our residents aren't bringing it over here. If they'll have collections in front of their house, it would make sense to at least keep that Compost Crew contract for the near future.
And then the toters, 13-gallon, will they be stamped by the town, like TOK ones?
Yep.
Just because they're.
Yep. So we have color options and a stamp, and the stamping would be included with the color option from the pricing that we got.
I just want to make sure that so they don't get mixed or confused with what the county's trying to do with the county program.
Yeah.
And this pier.
And it will be on are we adding a third trash pickup day or a fourth?
So that's not clear yet.
Okay.
The preliminary discussions with ecology, again, this is, we're gonna bring this to you next month.
Right.
We just, on the purposes of, money wise, we need
Yeah.
to.
No, we need
Stuff
to
it
make
in the
sure it's in
budget.
the budget. Yeah.
It sounded like it would be a Friday compost collection.
Okay.
At least now. I mean, that's something that we could probably work out with them. Ecology does not currently have a residential composting program. They have a commercial composting program with NIH. We reached out to them following getting some preliminary pricing from another vendor to see if they were interested in doing it. They were, so we would be their pilot, at least on the residential side. The composting facility is located in Jessup, Maryland. And if we move forward with this, I will have a lot of information to bring to the council and the public.
And you said that Garrett Park would also be partnering with us.
So the pricing that we have for the composting right now is based on Town of Kensington composting collection only. If our natural trash collection partner is Chevy Chase View, we were told that if we could get them to agree to a composting collection as well, it would reduce the units by $3 a month. It would reduce our overall costs drastically.
Okay.
So it would bring it down from about 62,000 to the low 40s.
So we need to talk this up with Chevy Chase View to do this. They've had, change in town management and their elected officials are not quite as active, within our chapter. So, but it might be helpful for us, not necessarily Matt, but for our elected officials, like particularly Sustainable Kensington Group, to reach out to Chevy Chase View to see if they would be wanting to. I mean, we could actually ask to attend the meeting with Chevy Chase View and see if we can't get them interested in wanting to join the composting program, because they do have some people that do use compost.
So they have, currently they are subsidizing a contract with Compost Crew. They have 18 residents.
Yeah,
18
so
residents that they're
their
subsidizing.
subsidizing is not very expensive,
No.
but
So, obviously it's a benefit for us financially and it's a benefit for ecology if they were able to get CCV on a composting collection contract as well. They are their trash recycling contractor as well. And their current contract with them would be seamless with if we were to move forward with a 3-year contract extension.
Okay.
So it kind of put us together.
Paula
Yeah,
Fudge.
Fudge, it's her issue area.
Yeah.
purview,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but before even going there, I just wanted to say about this issue, it's really exciting. And may want to speak to this too, but Sustainable Kensington's been looking at this issue. Olin Logan and Sustainable Kensington's been leading the charge on this, and I know has met with Matt and done a lot of interviews in different jurisdictions. I think it's important to note that, yes, it's great we have the budget for this. It's great that Ecology is proposing this. It could be a win-win-win for everyone. But we have a really good relationship with Compost Crew, and we talked, Ed and I talked with Matt about making sure they also have an opportunity to provide a quote. And I know that you provisionally reached out to them, but at least exploring what is out there, what options. Of course, it sounds like this is a no-brainer, but I think and Connor and I spent a long time cultivating that relationship, and I think the partnerships worked really well. It just could be that from a business model perspective, it doesn't work, but maybe there's a way, as you mentioned, to keep them involved in some way with we can offer a service for our commercial, our businesses, that's not provided by Ecology through Compost Group or something to that effect. So I think it'll be important to discuss when you bring the details. Maybe we can also discuss with Sustainable Kensington the next time we meet.
So the numbers we have from Compost Crew are double what Ecology provided us. It's literally double. But I completely agree. I mean, we do have a good relationship with them. I think it's in our best interest to keep the existing facility that we have at Town Hall, whether we move it or not. And then there's always a commercial aspect to this, which Ecology did not seem interested in. So that's a possibility.
Yeah, if we could somehow get all, I mean, now that we have all these restaurants, they're the ones that are creating quite a bit of this, yeah,
Yeah,
of
I mean,
waste.
the budget is a lot more than composting, but this is a change. This is the biggest change in the budget from prior years. And it would be adding a service. And so, that's kind of what
I just want to chime in. I second everything that Nate said. And thank you, Matt and Susan, for making a space in the budget for this possibility next year and doing all the legwork. I will add that part of doing additional legwork will be examining sort of in more granular detail what it means in terms of the composting capabilities that they have and how that might different from what some residents are used to with Compost Crew. Also look a little bit more closely at that second trash pickup and phase out options, and also education and outreach work that would need to be done in the community. Those are the types of facts that with Olwyn from Sustainable Kensington, we can kind of dig in on a little bit more with town staff to bring that back to a future meeting.
Is at some point the county's going to push commercial, small businesses or restaurants particularly to do composting?
I would imagine. Yeah,
At
I
some
mean,
point.
Montgomery County was a leader on recycling many, many years ago. So I would imagine that they would push that on composting. Obviously, we have the problems with the restaurants. The
Right,
biggest issue we have with the restaurants in the town is space.
yeah, no,
Um,
they don't have the
you know,
space to
They
put,
don't have the space to, let alone get a dumpster
right.
and then a compost. So, obviously there's some challenges to that.
And it's, this stuff is heavy. It's not like you can just, go out there with your big bucket. I mean, we're talking, at home, you have a little bucket. At a restaurant, your bucket's gonna be pretty darn big.
I mean, we may not be ready for this. I mean,
Yeah.
the sustainable may come back and say, we're not ready for this, right now. They might say we need a little bit of time. But again, what we need to do is figure out in the budget whether this was realistic. Obviously, Councilmember Lichter and Councilmember Engel have been talking to town staff about this. We know it's a great interest in the community, and we're just trying to find a way to make it work financially, at least as soon as 2025. So,
Okay, good. All right. Council, any other questions regarding the budget before we open it up?
I just want to note that we are, as you mentioned, Tracy, planning to do a community budget forum May 1st, where we can go into a little bit more detail with the information here. And Matt, I guess my question would be if there are ideas that come up during that discussion that would require tweaking and amendments, just as you've noted might have to happen with ARPA or otherwise. Will that be possible? I know it's tight with the timing of May 8th versus an amendment maybe after the budget's been enacted.
I guess it depends on what the requests are. I mean, if they're infrastructure things, that's easier to figure out within the CIP. If someone comes in and asks for a specific line item, then we're gonna have to figure out what we're gonna remove or find the money from. But I mean, I guess it depends on what.
Yeah. Well, I can give you, one example from the conversations that have happened recently around parking and a recognition that we're probably due to assess parking options and wayfinding and all of that in town. And if that is something that maybe we need to put more resources into this year, that was an example I thought of.
Yeah, so we actually have increased our line item for traffic engineering. To that respect, we knew we were having some problems specifically, mostly around baby cat. We were aware of that. There have been some internal conversations with our traffic engineer about putting together a program to clarify a lot of our no parking zones. We're well aware that, some say 7 to 5, some say 7:30 to 5:30, some say Monday through Friday, some are, inconsistent. We're well aware of that.
Right, we need to be more consistent with those.
So it's
sure.
something we have funds for to address in the near future. So I think we can handle that. At least with respect to signage, basic signage and evaluation of where we need to make improvements with parking signage and directional signs.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. I'm thinking we might need some assessment beyond that, but don't need to belabor it tonight since I know it's already late. I just wanted to flag that question.
I think there's funds in the budget that we can find for
Yeah,
That-
something
that
like
type
that
of
could
thing.
actually come out of the CIP.
Yeah.
It's infrastructure, so.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions from the council? No? Anyone online have a budget question or wants to ask Joe?
Yes, I do. And my apologies for the earlier audio problems. I really thought the town manager did a nice job with his overview just now, and I do have some questions. One is, and he partly addressed this, saying that the budget statement refers to a negative general fund balance being being a possibility for this fiscal year. I'm just wondering if that happens, how much of a negative general fund balance are we looking at?
So it
Sorry.
would basically, it would essentially be one of the ARPA payments. So we received 2 ARPA payments over 2 consecutive years. It would essentially be $1 million. The issue we ran into is the project that we were looking at originally to use the ARPA funds towards ran into some issues. This was related to Kensington County Park. We pivoted to a couple of other locations where we've seen some stormwater management issues. Those projects are more likely. The problem is that we need to do a little more engineering than other than just going out and putting storm drains in. We actually need engineering designs to make sure that what we're putting in doesn't mess up that area or further down the stream. That's taking a little more time. In order for those ARPA funds to come off the books, we have to have a contract associated with them. Although we have engineering contracts for that, we don't have construction contracts for those. So there's a possibility that we may need to do a budget amendment. We're trying to figure that out with the town attorney and the town auditors. So if we do need to do a budget amendment, we'll have it before you in May. Otherwise, if one of these projects moves just a little quicker than it is, then we will not have an issue. So.
Very good, thank you. Reading the budget statement closely and maybe between the lines a little bit, it appears that the Friday trash pickup might be destined for elimination. Will residents have the option to continue that twice a week pickup, the Friday pickup, even if the ecology composting project goes forward? And if so, if it's going to be eliminated, what's the rubric for determining whether to eliminate it or not?
So within the budget, all we're trying to do is figure out what we can afford to do for FY25. FY25, if we move forward with a weekly composting program, would not eliminate a second trash collection. The agreement that we would have with ecology would allow us to evaluate the second trash collection on a year-by-year basis. That would obviously come back to the mayor and council and would involve public comment. So I don't think the answer can be tonight, but it would leave that open down the road. So obviously, we are not looking to eliminate a second trash collection in the upcoming fiscal year.
Right, but the budget statement, I believe, has references to a second and third year under the proposed agreement with ecology.
Which would be evaluated in a future year. So we cannot answer that right now, Joe, other than it would be evaluated and the mayor and council would take public comment to determine whether it's feasible or applicable by the residents of the community. So
is there a rubric for determining whether to go ahead or not? Or are you just saying it's premature to even discuss it?
it's too premature. The contract that we would put in front of the council for the extension would just allow us to remove the second trash collection. There's nothing set in stone.
Okay. I noticed that the budget statement refers to a 5% increase in per unit collection for ecology services in fiscal 25. As you're aware, there have been periodic and indeed recurring problems with ecology trucks leaking oily substances on town streets. And the most recent episode was a week ago yesterday. So if you would help me understand why we're proposing to pay ecology more when its vehicles are leaving oily residues polluting the streets of the town, especially in parts of the town where there are no sidewalks and residents and pedestrians are forced to walk in the streets if they're going to go out for a walk.
So the costs of the collections obviously have gone up. They've gone up greater than what our internal internal escalator was within the existing contract. So we're coming off a 6-year contract. So those rates were negotiated nearly 7 years ago. The 5% is very reasonable. It's actually less than what the current public bids are, including what Garrett Park just got. With respect to the maintenance of the vehicles, you know, they're large vehicles, their wear and tear is great. When there's issues, we address them as quickly as we can with ecology. Again, they're trash trucks. They're gonna have issues. So, I mean, I'm very happy with ecology. Like I said, they've been with us for 6 years. Next month, I'm gonna be asking the mayor and council to extend the 3-year contract with them. They got us through COVID, which was an incredibly difficult situation for them. They lost most of their CDL drivers. They are the 3rd collector we've had in this town. They are by far the best. They are way better than what we were at collecting trash. I will defend ecology. They're not perfect, but they're a very good hauling company, and I'm very happy with them.
Well, I'm sure that best practices would be not to pollute town streets with the oily residues from the trucks. And this is not a weekly problem. It's periodic. It does recur, but it's a periodic problem. So they must have some maintenance issues at their end. And I'm not going to go into great detail with this, but it just seems to me that this is at odds with a 5% increase for their services.
Okay.
The page 9 of the budget statement includes a salary schedule for fiscal 25. Could you help me understand this chart? Because it lists minimums and maximums. And, you know, what are these and how are they set or determined? For example, the town manager's position, if I'm reading this right, could pay anywhere from $131,000 or it could pay upwards of $185,000. I just don't understand which it is or what the how this really works. And this is on page 9 of the budget statement.
So we've explained this every single year. The council is required to adopt a salary schedule within the budget. A salary schedule sets what a salary can be within a certain realm. So for example, the town manager, you know, if you're at the lower end, you're going to be paid at least $131,000. If you're at the higher end, you're at $185,000. That is what the salary schedule establishes with the parameters. Each employee is within that salary schedule. We have an older staff. Most of our staff have been here for many years. As I've told you in previous years, if you take the midpoint of the salary range, you're going to find where most employees are located. The salaries are available. We have provided them to you. We have never not provided them to you. And the salary schedule is what the council is required to approve within the budget. And that's why it's provided.
So I think it would be far more transparent and frankly democratic if you were able to just say in the budget statement how much each of these positions were paid, rather than leave people to guess that it might fall within a certain range here. In fact, that little bit of information is not included at all in the budget statement, that it's within this range, and you sort of have to kind of maybe do an average or guess as to where the salaries are. Why not just be transparent about it and say, this is what the town manager is going to be paid. This is what the clerk treasurer will be paid, and leave it at that.
I'm open to suggestions from the mayor and council.
I mean, I will just say I prefer the salary schedule for the reason that this helps us understand if we need to replace an employee at any particular labor category, what the possible salary rate may be. If we fix it to a singular number of what an employee is making now, that may not be the replacement value of that employee. Sorry, Susan, I'm not talking about you like chairs and tables, but like if we, you know, if we were to get a new treasurer, that salary range helps build our budget. It could be that the next treasurer comes in at a different salary depending on market economics, quality of applicants, etc. This to me is, from a legislative standpoint, this helps me more than the numbers. And then Joe, I see your point about democratic, but if I heard, every time it's been asked by any resident, what are the current 2-day salaries they've been provided? So to me, that is both democratic and transparent. The numbers are there on today's employees, but this helps us build budgets for the next year for the unforeseen.
So why not have it both ways? Why not have the salary schedule and the specific salaries listed in the budget? I mean, that would enhance transparency, and it would enhance the democratic nature of a town budget, a small town budget.
I see your point. You know, it's odd. I've been on the council for 7 years. I've never once asked for the current salaries of any employee on the council. I don't need it to build a budget. I need to know what the rate for that equivalent position is in the region, in the event that we want to add another position, if we need to replace somebody who wins the lottery. Susan, you're gonna win the lottery, congratulations. And so for me, this actually provides me all the information sitting up here that I need. Everybody's different. I've never once felt the need to ask for the salaries of current employees.
Well, it's not a zero-sum game either. I mean, this is something we could have both ways. We could have that salary schedule, which is more confusing in my view than it is clarifying. And we could also really enhance the transparency of small town governance in Kensington by having a specific salary. This is in fiscal 25. This is what we're going to pay the town manager. This is what we're going to pay them.
And it is available if you ask for it.
I know.
I know, Joe, we go through this every year. We've seen your point. We've responded to it. And I'd like to move on. It's 9:30.
I know.
If you want to have public appearances, it's going to be after 10 o'clock at this point. So is there anything else you would like to address?
Yeah, a couple more questions. And I also sat through the first 45 minutes of this meeting when the discussion was devoted to what the town's sign should look like. So I would appreciate a little bit of indulgence, even at this late hour, for me to complete these questions. And my point, I seem to not be able to convey it very well, that this is not a zero-sum game on the budget salaries. We can have both the salaries and the budget schedule every year. And it's not something we have to go through every year, but apparently we're going to have to. I have another question about the construction and repair of bridges on the Kensington Parkway, Kensington and Frederick Avenue. Last year, the budget estimated this was going to cost $300,000. This year, it's up to $350,000. So if you would help me understand why this has gone up so much, nearly 17% within a year, for these bridges that have been, we've known they've needed repairs for quite some time now.
So, we increased the proposed RFP amount based on construction costs that we're seeing. Doesn't mean it's going to cost $350,000, but what we want to do is be safe, make sure that we had enough money in that line item of the CIP to cover any additional costs for the construction when the RFP goes out later this year. It could be less, could be more. We just need to budget and have a better understanding of what we think the construction costs are going to come in once the RFP is issued.
The budget statement refers to inflationary pressures as a reason for this increased line item, but I don't think that inflation, even in this era, has gone up 17% a year, has it?
Yeah, it has.
And do we know when this is going to get underway? I mean, Brutus has been very, very slow at taking on this project, a project that has been identified as needed for quite some time.
As we explained at the last meeting, the project manager for Brutus resigned and took another position. We had to replace that project manager. They're moving along. There was also a request from Montgomery Parks to amend the engineering design to allow for the change of the main access point in the Kensington Cabin Park, which needs to be addressed. The RFP should go out later this year, and I hope that construction will begin before the end of the calendar year.
All right. And finally, then, I do hope that this bridge project gets underway, because it's been on hold for quite some time, and the project manager's departure doesn't seem to be adequate reason for this to be delayed. But in any case, I noticed that there's a line item in the proposed budget for $12,000 for street sweeping. I think it's the same amount as last year. How often do town streets receive street sweeping attention? And are residents notified so that they can move their cars to accommodate the street sweeper?
No, we do one street sweep in a year. It's in the spring. It's over a 2-day period. What they do is they, it's just they usually do it on a Monday and Tuesday. They go around the vehicles. Throughout the year, the town can also do street sweeping. We have an attachment with our skid steer. It actually is better when we do it internally. The problem is it takes us a long time because the attachment we have for the skid steer cannot do the volume that the street sweeping contractor does. So the answer is once a year, typically in the spring. So you'll probably see it come sometime in May.
And is this work done by the town crew or is this an outside contractor?
So the main one is done by a contractor. They're called Quiet Sweep. They have a contract with Montgomery County, along with Maryland Department of Transportation. You'll probably see them through town. They do the Kensington train station. You'll see them on Connecticut Avenue. And then, like I said, the town can do street sweeping periodically with our attachment. It's very difficult. They can only do so much at one time compared to a commercial contractor.
And residents aren't notified that this is going to be taking place because that would be useful, I think, information to have.
Not when you do it over 2 days. You typically you'll hit where you need to hit.
All right, that exhausts my short list of questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Al? Name and street.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
For the record, I'm Al Carr and I live on Washington Street.
Thank you.
I'm just going to hand something out here. So kudos to Town Manager Matt Hoffman and the staff on putting together the budget. I did have a couple comments. One is on the revenue side, is that I would propose that the town should go with the constant yield rate. And even though the General Assembly did repeal the advertising requirement, in the eyes of the law, the way to not raise taxes is to go with the constant yield rate, because that is the rate that will raise the same amount of money, not including new construction. That would yield a little bit less revenue, and I have a couple of suggestions for revenue sources for the town. One, on the longer term option, is the town might want to consider having a hotel tax, which when the flats at Knoll Stations eventually opened, if those hoteling units are going to be treated for tax purposes that way.
So I don't want to interrupt. That is no longer on the table. They are being removed.
Oh,
The
okay.
hotel units are being removed, and I don't want to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
The biggest concern I have is this gross accessible property base is with the phase-in of 3,700 flyers mill. So this is what I was kind of talking about earlier in the evening. There is a comfort level from us not to reduce this, at least this year, because we don't know what the appeal process is going to come through. So I would not be comfortable going to the constant yield rate this year. But I hear you clearly. Once that's resolved, and if it comes back next year at a lower rate, I think we would be a lot more comfortable on the staff side to come to the council with that proposal. We just want to know what's going to happen with the appeal on 3,700. That is as you know, substantial amount of money on the phase-in. It caught us off guard. It concerned us. Obviously, we are proposing some service improvements to the town this year. So we need to have a little more confidence on the accessible base and our revenues before we were to request the council to go to the constant yield or to a lower tax rate. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
Thank you for that explanation. That's really helpful. Does Mr. Brault have to go back to the planning board now that he's going to alter the makeup of the units?
We have had with him. I know he has been in touch with Councilmember Crimmins about holding a DRB meeting.
We have site amendment.
So we have to go back to the planning board.
Yeah, we have told Mr. Brault 2 years ago to go and get a local map amendment. We are looking at it internally on a refresh of the 20 in the city sector plan. That's not going to be this timeline. Obviously, Tom was looking for something in the next 6 to 12 months. We're looking 3, 5, 7 years down the road. He's aware of this, but he has told us, he's been very clear that the hotels will be removed from his project.
Okay, that's really interesting. So I still think it makes sense for the town to have a hotel tax, you know, to the extent that there might be, you know, Airbnbs or short-term rentals or some future application, just might be good to have that just already on the books. Another revenue source is potentially, there is a business called Dark Fiber and Infrastructure. The state considers them a public utility, similar to Pepco or Washington Gas. They're the company that, you know, dug up our streets, laid fiber optic cable a few years ago. And
Was that the one for the county?
they are a for-profit business,
Okay,
and the county
they
does
put it
partner
in.
with
they
them.
put that in, okay.
But they are not, they're supposed to pay property taxes and they're not. So I think they've even like forfeited their like Maryland incorporation. But in any case, something should be done to you know, recover the money that they owe in property taxes that they have not been paying for years.
Mm.
So that's something to look
I
into.
think didn't they give us some money,
We kept their bond.
their bond?
We declined to return their bond. They did not repair some issues they caused. in the
Right.
town. So
Okay.
I flag this for the county. I mean, the county should be looking at this too, because it's a lot of money for the county. But anyway, so that's on the revenue side. On the spending side, I would suggest that the town should invest this year in acquiring the Pepco street lighting infrastructure. We know that it is, you know, dilapidated. Pepco is not doing a good job at speedy repairs. Their records are incorrect in terms of the invoices that they send. And they have a map where you can, you know, report a light that's out. The map has a lot of errors in it. In any case, the history on this, if you look at the town has a different rate for utilities for property taxes than it does for other types of property. And Sanford had put that in play. He had kind of nudged that up every year to where it is now. It's kind of high, 5 cents, you know, $5 per $100. And that was for the purpose of to raise some capital funds to eventually acquire the streetlights from Pepco so that they could be upgraded, you know, to LED, more energy efficient, cost savings for the energy and for the maintenance. And I know priorities change, elections happen, you know, money gets moved around. At one point in that pot of money was, you know, almost 300,000. And I know the town has done a lot on the advocacy part. I know the town spent a lot to advocate at the Public Service Commission to defeat a not very flexible LED proposal from Pepco. But I was just chatting with Sue Ellen out in the hallway, and there have been some breakthroughs at the Public Service Commission, thanks to Sue Ellen's efforts, that will dramatically, I think, lower the cost of an acquisition like that. There is state and federal money available to subsidize acquisition and conversion. That's available now, and it might not be available in the future. So, and there's, you know, there's loans, there's like the local government investment or infrastructure finance loan you can get from the state, and you pay that back with, you know, the energy and the maintenance savings. There's the, you know, the Jane Lawton loan also from the state. So there's ways to make it happen. And so that is my input for the spending side. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Can I just,
Sorry.
not to belabor this, but the constant yield clarification that you've given us, isn't that in tension with your advocacy for against the HB 1488? Because you indicated to the town that we'd get a windfall, $120,000 windfall. The only way we get that windfall is if we keep the rate the same. If your proposal is that we reduce the rate so that we have a constant yield, then we get no windfall. So which one do you want?
we don't know what the outcome is gonna be.
But no,
Luckily,
but you
the
assumed
bill
that we're-
was defeated luckily, so that's a positive financially for the town. If you read the fiscal note for the bill prepared by the Department of Legislative Services, they say, had that bill passed, it would have cost the town $120,000 this year, and that is knowing, of course.
That's wrong though, right? Because if
I
the
mean,
only
if
way.
you
for
want to
us
argue
have
that
gotten
the
that
BLS
money-
was wrong, you can make that argument.
No, but you're,
Um,
no, I'm asking
We
you.
don't know
Say, which is
what
it?
the
You want
ultimate
the constant
outcome
yield
is
or
going to
no?
be. We know that the property owner is now at the second level appeal, PTAB.
Okay.
Um,
Well,
that hearing is
throwing a
on
lot of uncertainty. When
April
your
30th,
advocacy
yeah.
to the state and to the town.
Yeah.
To your fellow residents was. We have this $120,000 windfall. And now you're telling us, no, give it up.
No, so I'm suggesting going with the constant yield rate. That would be about a $30,000 difference, not a $120,000 difference.
But
But if you add the
Each year.
$122,000 to it. I think that's what Darren's point is. If you take that additional money that is purported to come in from this assessment on 3,700 Pliers Mill, that and we kept constant yield, we would not see that additional tax revenue.
You would not see as much of it, but you would still see it.
how? I mean, if we reduce the rate. To offset the increased assessable base. Then we bring in less revenue and we share the reduced rate with everybody in town. And it's being paid for by the one property with the increased assessment. If we don't do the constant yield, if we keep the rate the same, then there's a potential of increased revenue for the town. I'm just hearing you arguing both positions, and I'm saying, I don't think you can reconcile them.
Yeah, no, the constant yield versus not constant yield is about a $30,000 difference. The 3,700 Pliers Mill is a $120,000 difference. So
That was over 2 years.
they're over 2 fiscal years that hit this year. The previous fiscal year and this fiscal year are in calendar year 2024.
I don't think your numbers are right. I think your.
Oh, well, I'm happy to.
$120,000 figure
if you-
was not changing the rate. I think this is a proposal to change the rate. And so I guess I'm asking, which do you want? Change the rate or don't change?
Yeah,
the rate?
I guess I don't see it that way. Yeah, I think the constant yield is the way to go. And I think there's some other ways to make up the $30,000 in lost revenue that might result from going with the constant yield.
I think we won't know until the appeal is
No,
completed.
there's
Yeah.
a whole lot of uncertainty.
Lot of,
about
I
the
know,
value
there's a lot of
appeal,
uncertainties in the world.
But I didn't sense that uncertainty in your advocacy. And now that's all I hear is uncertainty.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Al. Okay. Anne, you look so lonely online there.
I'm still
Um,
here. It's gotten dark.
Hey, and it's only what, 9:30 there? What are you, an hour or 2 hours?
It's only an hour, so it's
No,
8:40.
it's only 8:30, 8:43 there.
Feels like 10:45 though.
All right, I don't see any additional hands. And so we need a motion to hold the hearing open until May 6th at 4 p.m.
I can do it.
Okay,
I move to leave the public hearing open for ordinance O-03-2024 until May 6th at 4 p.m. 2024.
is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and do public appearances and then we'll do our mayor and council reports. Anyone here wish to speak on anything that's not already on the agenda? Joe?
Yes. Couple of questions. One, what could you tell us about the new street signs, the implementation thereof? I mean, is there a schedule that's being followed, or is it just kind of whenever the sign comes in? I've noticed that there have been some new signs replacing the older antique-looking signs. So I just wonder what, if any, schedule there is that the town's following.
A little bit. So we're trying to finish the south side of town, which is basically east of Connecticut, south of the railroad tracks. We're gonna try to finish that by the end of the summer. We did do a number of signs on the north side, just preliminary, where we did some improvements, road improvements specifically at Farragut and University, in addition to Pliers Mill Road in St. Paul. We'll probably get to those later in the year, and then the west side will probably be early 2025. So within the fiscal year, we should be completed.
And are these signs being replaced for aesthetic reasons, or is it because the older signs were kind of losing their, I don't know, appeal somehow?
There's a couple reasons. One, we decided, well, we had a couple signs that went down. They're very expensive, the cast iron signs, and they did not necessarily meet current requirements with regards to reflectivity and sizing. So what we did is we put together a demo of a very old sign. The original one is still located on Montgomery Avenue by Noyes Children's Library. We put it up as a demo, received some pretty positive feedback, and decided to move forward with replacing them. They're pretty much up to code. They're visible, they're reflective, and they are about a fifth of the cost of the cast irons. So.
Which leads to another question. Where do we stand with the benches lottery, if that's the way to put it?
Well, if we get to my report, I'll bring that up.
Well, I'll just wait around for that then, but maybe you can
There
just,
you go. There's the reason to hang in there.
yeah, I guess. I was two other points, and then I'll yield the floor. What was determined about the ecology truck leaking oily substances on town streets last week on Tuesday? I think it was the recycling truck. Do we know why or what happened exactly? Other than they're trucks and they're old and.
I'm sorry, I was out of the office last Tuesday, so I'm not sure what the outcome was, Joe. So I didn't get that report and I was out of the office, so.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you.
I'd like to pursue that because, you know, again, it's not the first time that's ever happened, and they really shouldn't be doing that stuff, polluting the streets like that. Finally, tip of the hat to the mayor for alerting Montgomery County Police last Sunday about a stolen car that was parked on at the intersection of Frederick Avenue and Frederick Place, and I was unable, seeing this car, to alert Montgomery County Police non-emergency line. I kept getting a recording saying the call would not be able to go through at that time. So on it was Sunday morning, and I called the mayor, and she swung into action. And so by that evening, there were Montgomery County Police and a police tow to remove that car. And it was, I think by 10:30 p.m. they had wrapped everything up. It took a while because the car not only was stolen, but had 4 flat tires on it, and moving it around obviously was pretty difficult. So they say a tip of the hat to the mayor.
Well, thank you. It was one of those Kias that you can start by just doing the wire thing. So, but I'll give you a tip, Joe. I actually just reported it online, and I guess maybe being the mayor helped get a little bit more action, but that's all I did is I reported it online.
I thought not to ask you to disclose sources, but I thought you indicated you had somebody whom you could contact.
Yeah, I did my Googling and decided not to bother them and try the online version, and it obviously worked quite well.
Okay. Internet, huh? Okay.
They have a abandoned car report that you can go to.
Isn't that just theoretically, isn't that a little concerning though, that on weekends, the non-emergency police line is not being answered? I know there's fiscal issues and you and I talked a little bit about that, but still it's of no small concern, I would think, that's the case nowadays. It used not to be the case.
Given the choice, I'd rather them answer the 911 call versus the non-emergency call. It is a problem within our region that people do not want to be police officers. They don't want to be 911 operators, and it's something for smarter people than me to figure out how to attract people to these jobs.
This did not raise to the level of a 911 call. I don't
No,
know.
it didn't. I mean, I'm just saying, if given the choice, I would rather people who are on duty answering those calls.
Yeah, of course. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah.
But it is concerning that the non-emergency line that they publish and have made available isn't being answered.
This is true, but they do offer the online version, and it obviously, in this particular case, worked very well. Otherwise, if you talk to somebody, my guess would be they would tell you it'll be moved in 48 hours. So that's usually what they tell people.
Well, here's hoping we don't have this kind of problem again, you know?
Hopefully not. Correct. Okay. Anything else? I think we lost your voice again, Joe.
No, nothing else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, let's move down to council updates. Darren, you want to go first?
I don't have anything to add to the discussion other than I thought the town party on Saturday night went very well.
I think it did.
Good
I think it
turnout,
did great.
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Great to see neighbors that you don't see all
Mhm.
all the time.
It's nice seeing some younger families there, some younger people.
Every year the
They
town
get-
seems younger.
We get older, they
Yeah.
get younger. Well, since you brought it up, I do want to thank our 130th committee, which included Nicole Andrews, Don Frattarelli, and Megan Griggs, and Darren and myself, and then Jody Krieger. So we worked really hard on it, and I think we did learn that people are a lot more busy than they are 5 years ago. I think that we have a lot to offer here in Kensington, and so everybody's going in 100 different directions, but we had a good turnout, and everybody had a good time. So, Connor?
Just 13 quick things.
Yeah.
Just
Just
one,
13?
just one. We mentioned last meeting that the Compass Arts Center was coming to town. They are here.
Yes.
They have held their first classes already. In fact, town resident Jim Bodette taught intro to oil painting last night, or Monday night.
Did you sign up? Were you?
I did not, but I heard all about it at the solar eclipse. But the official grand opening is this Saturday, the 13th, from 12 to 6 at the building 10335 Connecticut Parkway, right next to the post office. So they will have an open house. You'll be able to meet Glenn, who is the director. I'm sure there'll be several artists and teachers. They'll walk through the building, refreshments. So be exciting that they are, I mean, it went very slow and now all of a sudden it went very fast that they are here. So great addition to the town.
Yeah, that is good. All right, anything else?
That was it.
Okay. Hey,
I'll try to be quick. So Connor and I published an article in the Town Journal on the ULI cap process for Summit Avenue Extension. In parallel, we've been doing some outreach. Ann and I have been working with some of the residents of Kengar and some of their, I don't know if we call it their neighborhood association, but just to talk through some of the challenges and opportunities that this presents to their neighborhood that were expressed during that process, and then also subsequently in conversations with them. They're just trying to figure out how we can best incorporate their legitimate concerns, but then also what they see as opportunities to make improvements in terms of, I guess, property values, exploring mechanisms like community land trusts, making sure certain businesses are not pushed out, and so on. So we're working with them to actually get the word out and go door to door and hear their concerns. That process will play out over the next couple of weeks and months, culminating hopefully not in one final discussion, but a community forum hopefully take place in Gengar sometime in mid-June. We haven't officially set the date with them because we also need to look into the availability of the community center there, but it's probably going to be the weekend of the 22nd, 23rd of
Okay.
June. But we'll continue to work with them because it's been really positive conversations about those issues. So, and you might want to elaborate. The only other two things I want to flag are the meetings for the pedestrian bicycling access and safety working group is going to be on, the next meeting is April 16th at 7:30 here at Town Hall. And then Sustainable Kensington has a meeting May 15th, also here at Town Hall. And I'll let you describe the Day of the Book Festival table if you would like. If not, happy to do it.
Yeah, sure. I'll mention that. April 21st is the Day of the Book celebration, and we will have a town tent where we have two tables, one table where we're going to combine Sustainable Kensington, Greenscape, and Pedestrian Bike and Access Safety Working Group, and then another table for the Juneteenth team. So we're bringing out volunteers from those committees to meet with community members, encourage you all to, of course, attend Day of the Book and stop by. And then just to add to what Nate was describing with the Kingar meetings, we've had two so far with a number of residents that are, I think technically it's the Civic Association, but either way, they've been productive conversations, and I think everybody recognizes that true consultation takes a lot of time and many steps. So we're building on what's already been done.
I have a quick question. Since that, the plantings that people were going to be able to buy didn't work out this year, that Catherine Wood was working on, that was going to be considered our Arbor Day. Is that correct? Are we doing something else?
Well, we'll be able to count our May 18th Tree Care 101 workshop,
Okay.
I think, as an Arbor Day event. I was gonna mention we're gonna get a registration page up just like we did last year.
Okay.
But that will be available to town residents to come learn about tree care. So I think we'll be able to use that and then create the proclamation.
Okay. Perfect. Anything else?
Nothing at this point.
Okay. All right, I just have a couple of things. I want to bring some dates to everybody. We've already talked about the events. Of course, the car show's May 4th. May 16th, the Kensington Ken Group is having their party around the fountain for the businesses. So if you're available, it's open to the public as well because it's a public park, but they are having that event. It's also right now, according to the MC chapter, it's also a chapter meeting, although location, time, is still to be determined, so that may change, but that's also on the 16th. And then has anybody decided, they already know they're not going to the MML conference? You're not?
I'm not finished.
You're
I'm
not?
for sure.
Okay. Anne, are you or Darren going?
I will try to figure out.
Okay. And do you know
Yeah.
if you're going?
I don't think I'm going to be able to. I think we have a family schedule conflict, but
That's fine. Susan's always trying to find out if people are coming so she can get you registered. So it sounds like Darren's a maybe and everybody's a not. It's okay. I'll be there. I'll represent us. Yeah, I'll hold down the fort. Okay, and let's see. Oh, two more things. I'm gonna make Joe hang in here to the very, very bitter end. I talked to one of our residents on Kensington Parkway. She was actually on the call, but I'm sure it went longer than she expected. As Matt brought up, we need to look at the signage to be more consistent in our permitting signs. There is some concern with some of the residents regarding baby cat that, especially on events, when they have the big events, are their maps correct? I think we can do a better job getting signage, particularly at the farmer's market or the train lot, that this property is available to park in at certain hours. And then I don't know whether M&T would be okay with putting up a sign into, at that lot too, allowing people to park there, after certain hours.
Only trying, just
to see if they would be okay with that.
Give them a, every 6 weeks.
Right, we need to check in with them anyway. I do understand that sometimes the post office is not very thrilled with people parking there, so, but I think those,
Ever okay with that?
Oh, they certainly were.
I don't know, they're funny,
Right.
they're funny. So anyway, so it's, well, they consider themselves a federal agency, so anyway. But if we can, I know, you're working on the permit signage.
Yeah, I mean, we're well aware that the signs don't add up and
Okay.
it's something we'll try to clean up. And I think at least on the residents on Kensington Parkway with parking in front of the aprons will be resolved.
Okay,
But we do need to figure out a better wayfinding sign mechanism. make it clear.
definitely. And I mean, we have parking available. I mean, it's even parking is available at Town Hall. People just don't realize it's it's a 5-minute walk. It's not a bad walk. So we need to pick up the game here. Can I give a council member that particular task to make crack the whip?
On baby kit or on the sign?
Well, both.
I can do both.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, and the last item is the update on the benches. So we have 10 benches. Right now, we have 27 people who have contacted Alex regarding one of the benches. People have until May 1st to register with her. And then we will be pulling the names out of whatever we have. The week of May 6th, but she'll have everybody's email who has signed up for a bench. They will be notified of the date. They will be notified of the time, which will be most likely between noon and 3:30. And it'll be in the drill hall and you can come and watch the names being pulled. It will be done in public. So, but she will contact everyone after May 1st, letting them know when the drawing will be.
You need not be present to win.
And you need not be present to win, but it will be open to the public for those who want to come and observe and then get a big Yahoo if they are a winner. The benches are $50. What money is raised will go to the Hunger Ministry over at St. Paul's, which serves 20895. I was telling Matt today, I was looking at the addresses and we have about 30 people within the town that receives food and gift cards every month. And most are at Kensington House, Silver Creek apartment, and then some residential homes. The largest group is in Rebecca House, which is just outside our border by on Connecticut Avenue. There's about 50 people in there that they service. So on behalf, thank you. I think it's a really great way of doing it. So
And
anyway.
most importantly, the winners, they will be delivered.
the winners, they will be delivered to your front yard. You might be able to attempt the Public Works to maybe get it a little further, but not without offering maybe.
For that, no.
Yeah, no money, but maybe a cool drink or something like that. But yes, they will be delivered to the front yard and they are pretty heavy. So, but 2 people can carry them nicely. All right, so I hope that answered everybody's questions. And now we just need, I'm sorry the meeting went so long, but I think it was very interesting. And I know the signage was very important to our business community. So I'm glad we did spend some time on that. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. We want to stay? When are we meeting next
I'm
time?
to see if Ann was.
Anybody want to?
Which day, May 8th.
We're May 8th. And are we doing this in person or online? You're out of town, is that correct? You're out of the country. Yeah. So, okay. So, since this meeting ran so long, let's plan to do it online. And so staff can not have to be out so late. Yeah, so we will do it strictly by Zoom in May. And we will meet on May 8th. Nate will be absent. Let me write that down so I don't forget. And can I entertain a motion? Someone entertain a motion to adjourn? So Matt can go home.
I'll move to adjourn.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Good night, Ian.
Thank you. Good night.